and the efficient use of our limited resources. Fiscal prudence has become imperative for navigating the severe economic crisis that has recently confronted our country. The state spent 15 million Ghana cedis on last year's celebration in Koforidua and spent 13.7 million cedis on the previous year's celebration in Ho in the Volta region. This year, we received estimates of at least 20 million Ghana cedis for holding the event at the Independence Square on the same scale as the previous years. In a year when we are calling on all to sacrifice, including workers who have graciously accepted a base pay adjustment far below the rate of inflation, it is unconscionable to spend that kind of money on a few hours of celebration. Today's event would save us 95% of the estimated cost of the event. On fiscal discipline and living within our means, we're striving to expand our economy to yield prosperity for all. And to do this, we must look within and make sure that we are raising revenue domestically. This administration is working to implement the 24-hour economy program to ensure that our economy never goes to sleep. This will allow us to create the necessary job expansion, boost productivity, increase our exports capacity and trade footprint, and also reduce our dependence on foreign aid. The US $10 billion Big Push initiative will also modernize our infrastructure. It will create jobs. It will stimulate local industry, ensuring that our development is driven from within rather than funded from outside. Agriculture remains our biggest opportunity to reduce import dependence. With over $2 billion spent annually on food imports, the Agriculture for Economic Transformation agenda is structured to strengthen local agribusiness and ensure food security. The Feed Ghana program will drive mass food production and stabilize food prices. At the same time, the Poultry Farm to Table initiative, otherwise referred to as Nkukong Kitenkite program, will boost domestic poultry production and processing to directly address our 95% reliance on imported poultry products. The success of these policies depend on active citizen participation, particularly from our young people. The AgriNext program will equip 30,000 young people with land, training, and agribusiness opportunities. Farmer service centers in every district will provide access to mechanization services, quality seeds and fertilizer to boost local food production. My brothers and sisters, this is a defining moment, but policies alone, no matter how well couched and no matter how well intentioned, will not change our reality. Action will change that reality. As President, I'm taking the necessary action to create growth opportunities and enhance our economic independence. Young Ghanaians must step up to the plate, seize these opportunities, and contribute to building a self-sufficient nation. Ghana's economic future is in your hands. Rather than perpetually decrying our failures, every anniversary of our independence must present an opportunity for us to account for the legacy we are building for our next generation. We of this generation are merely custodians of this country and resources. They are entrusted to us to manage them wisely today for the generation of tomorrow. These independence anniversaries must therefore be a moment of reflection, not on what we have done for ourselves, but on how well we have stewarded national assets for those we will hand them over to in the future. Our story cannot be one of missed opportunities. It must be one of continued effort to achieve far more than we can boast of now. Posterity will not accept our failures or take them kindly. As President, I am committed to providing the bold leadership and the clarity of vision that is needed to navigate the turbulent economic waters we are sailing in currently, while safeguarding our future.
Following extensive damage reported in Agaveji, President Mahama has ordered the allocation of critical funds for Phase 2 of the Blekuso Sea Defense Project. This expansion aims to reinforce seawalls, install additional revetments, and upgrade coastal barriers, ensuring long-term protection against future tidal events. Recognizing the severe impact on local livelihoods, the President announced plans to roll out comprehensive settlement aid for families displaced by the tidal wave.
They came and they have made the assessment and they're giving us a comprehensive report of what is happening here. 51 households have been affected and 300 people have been displaced, and 80 meters of the coastline has been washed away. Now, when Chief was speaking, he touched on what the issue is. We started a sea defense project called Blekuso Phase 1. The feasibility study was also done for Blekuso Phase 2, and the understanding was that when the contractor finishes Phase 1, he will continue with Phase 2. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So the project ended at Phase 1. Government did not provide funding to continue Phase 2. Phase 2 would have covered Agaveji, Salakope, Adina, and Amochino. And so that basically is the problem. The feasibility study is ready, the design is ready. We just have to allocate the funding so that the project will start. Happily, the finance minister next week is going to present the budget. So I'm going to ask the finance minister to include funding to start Phase 2 of the Blekuso Sea Defense Project. Before we came here, we went to the Resettlement project that I believe or I've heard is being financed by Ghana Gas. I don't think the project was well thought through. The work is shoddy, and even the area where the resettlement is being built is a flood area, and so if it floods, it will affect those buildings too. And so those buildings are not fit for purpose. There are two things we need to do: start the building of the Phase 2 of the defense wall, but at the same time resettle those whose houses have been affected. In the meantime, to alleviate the plight of those who have been affected, we've brought some items to be distributed to those who have been displaced. The items are from three sources. One, our brother Governor Sakoja, who is our Minister of Roads and Transport, has donated 250 bags of rice. For those of you who know, our mother
has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Good morning, and thank you very much for choosing Pan-African Television. We are live from the studios, and of course, we are live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. This is the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji&Alhaji, and I am SENA, NOMBO. I welcome you to today's edition of the show. But before we start, today is International Women's Day. And so we start by a message from our very first female Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyeman. We'll take a message from her, we'll come back. I'll come back and tell you what we'll be discussing and our panelists for today.
To lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Women of Ghana, International Women's Day is our day. This year, it is being organized under the theme Accelerate Action. We do not only recognize the profound contributions of women in every sphere of society, but we also affirm our commitment to breaking the barriers that have long hindered our full participation in the nation's progress. Ghanaian women are the backbone of our families, communities, and economy, of course. Whether in our markets, in the boardrooms, classrooms, farmlands, or on the beaches, women continue to drive innovation, nurture growth, and shape the future of our country. Our contributions to business, to governance, education, healthcare, and the sciences are invaluable. And as a nation, we owe it to ourselves to create an ecosystem where everyone can thrive without imposed limitations. Over the years, we have made significant strides in advancing gender equality and empowering women. Under our current leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we have taken bold steps and remain dedicated to ensuring that women have the opportunities, resources, and the support needed to excel. Some of the key initiatives include the establishment of the Women's Development Fund to provide financial support to women entrepreneurs, ensuring that we have the capital and other forms of support to take action, expand our businesses, affirmative actions to increase the representation of women in leadership and governance, paving the way for more women to take their rightful places at decision-making tables. These ideas mark progress, but we know that the journey towards true equality is far from over. Women still face challenges along all spheres of life, but with the increase in representation, we will hold the door for many women to pass through to achieve their full potential. We all must do better to support the women of Ghana. As we celebrate this day, let us reaffirm our collective commitment to building a Ghana where every woman and girl has the freedom to dream, the power to achieve, and the support to excel. Empowering women is not just a women's issue. It is a national imperative. When women thrive, families, communities, nations prosper. Let us accelerate action for our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, and for the future of our great nation. A happy International Women's Day to all of us. Let us continue to accelerate action.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.
Well, subsequent to this message from our very first female Vice President, Professor Nana Ajimam, there will be a live broadcast on Pan-African Television, the 2025 International Women's Day, Women's Dialogue with the Vice President, Her Excellency, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman from 1 p.m. today. Happy International Women's Day to all our women, and of course, we're hoping that what happened when she was made the first female vice chancellor of a public university happens in this case when she's become the first female vice president. Now we continue to see women occupying the first two highest positions in the country. Well, we have to move on, and let me first introduce my panel for today. And somehow they are sitting virtually about in the same order on which they appeared on the flyer. So let me start with Laya and Rapia Dankwa, who is the spokesperson for the Movement for Change. Good morning to you. Good morning. Thank you. Very nice to see you. Yes, of course, we also have in our presence Atik Mohammed, who is Executive Director, Masda. Atik, good morning.
Good morning.
And Najib, Comrade Najib Yaya, is a member of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Accra Collective?
Yes.
Yeah, great, great. Our panel will be completed by the Honorable Member of Parliament for Tamale North and also Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways Designate. I think he hasn't been sworn in. They have been approved by Parliament, but not duly sworn in. If they did, then to be very frank, I must accept, then I missed the swearing in. Honorable Alassane Sini, we'll complete our panel for today. This morning, we're talking about the dialogue, the National Economic Forum, or dialogue that was held earlier this week. It was advertised it was going to come Monday, started, ended on Tuesday. They have a communique out, course of action, the way forward, or were put out in the public domain. What should we expect next? The New Patriotic Party explains that the reason they didn't turn up there is because if you say that we have been criminally managed the economy, why do you want to hear from us? That was the best explanation I heard from Nana Akumia on that. But they were not part of it. Virtually everybody that was invited tried as much as possible to have been part of the economic dialogue. So we'll talk about the National Economic Dialogue. And then we'll move on to, this is our Independence Week. Thursday was our 68th Independence Day. We are getting closer to 70 years as a nation. This time around, it was an austere celebration done in the forecourt of the Jubilee House. Took, I think, less than an hour. They were done with the celebration. So we're talking about independence, and should this be the new way of celebrating our independence, or should we return to the grand ceremonies? Somebody says adults will be sitting under tents and children will be in the sun and will be marching among others. It's a very interesting things I heard this week. Anyway, so we'll be talking about that, and then we'll conclude with, there seems to be a lot of finger pointing with the New Patriotic Party, within the New Patriotic Party, about who caused what, who was responsible for what, who made them lose the elections. And those are the issues we'll be discussing this morning. And thank you very much for joining us. Be an active part of the show. If you are watching us on social media, Facebook, YouTube, use the comment section, share a comment or two on the issues we'll be discussing. And also, you can also use our WhatsApp or text message number. In case you are listening to us, 0559 919 802. That's the number through which you can reach us. Well, we'll dive right into it. Start a discussion off with the National Economic Dialogue. And I always like to start whenever I see lawyer first. I don't know why. But I have the tendency of always starting with you when I see you. Well, so, who said the stage rolling?
I wish I was an economist, even as economist, I'd have understood the position.
Actually, I've heard you talk about the economy a couple of times. Considering you don't call yourself an economist, you're quite impressive.
Really?
Yeah.
You want my to tweet me? Anyway, I'll take it. So let me wish your lovely viewers good morning. It's always a pleasure to be on this show. So let me wish you a good morning. I like your food. You are looking very good, very Ghanaian. And first time meeting my brother here. Pleasure meeting him. Hopefully we can have a very good discussion. And can I call myself a comrade? Or I don't have the information. Only for the show. I like that. Yeah. I wish Ghanaians happy Independence Day and happy Women's Day. Yeah, International happy International Women's Day. I was privileged to have been to a school that can argue to have championed the cause of women more than any other institution in this country. You recall that first time we had a very serious conversation about empowering women through education, through secondary education, was when Achimota School was being established. And could you agree made a very profound statement then that to educate an individual, as when you educate a man, you educate an individual. When you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. So in the light of that profound statement and the impact of that statement, because within less than 30 years of the establishment of the school, Ghana had produced, and Ghana and the product of Achimota School had become the first woman High Court Justice of the entire Commonwealth. And we've seen the impact of the steps taken so many years ago in the development of women, to the extent that now we have the first woman vice president. She didn't go to Achimota School, but the pace we set so many years ago has led to so many women taking the higher echelons of our society. So I must add that within the same logic of could you agree, if we empower a woman, so right now we're going to be on just the educated, but if we empower them also economically, and you'll be empowering the entire nation. So let us as a people come together and do all we can to empower our women also. When we do so, we'll have a better nation for it. Now, I think the starting point for any conversation about the economy, obviously the economic dialogue, is to define what an economy is and the role a government plays in the economy. And also, in the light of this discussion, to also have what's called a historical perspective of the economic development of this country, and to also analyze critically how our inability as a people to come together as one, to see Ghana as one, and not through our partisan or tribal lenses, has played a huge role in our failure to capitalize on our political independence to attain economic independence. I think in very basic terms, an economy is essentially the state of a nation or of a region in terms of its production and consumption of goods and services and the supply of money. And to also understand that the role government plays in any economy essentially is in terms of how it uses its fiscal policy. When we say fiscal policy, how it raises money and how it spends money, and also the monetary policy, because the two combined deals with the supply of money aspect of the economy. Also, we also need to understand that the fundamental principle that governs the economic essence or purpose of Ghana, as captured in our constitution, is the principle that says that the role of government in the economic development or in the economic agenda is to create the right economic environment, is to create the right economic right economic environment, so that private sector can lead or private sector can serve as the engine of growth. I think it's necessary that those clarity or those points are made. In the middle of my submission, I think it is just right that I congratulate my own brother Suhini for his appointment. I'm glad that he's been made Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways, and I have no doubt that he's going to do well, and he's going to play his role in the development of our country. And we all know the role transportation and road plays in the economic development of every country. So he's going to play a very critical role in the reset of our economy. So Suhini, I wish you well.
Thank you.
I wish you well. Yeah, so back to what I was saying. So we need to situate our discussion there. Also, I think I need to say this, if you break down the economic issues we have, and essentially we've perennially struggled as a country economically, and that is seen in the fact that we've been to the IMF 17 times. And we've been to the IMF 17 times because, one, as a people, we've not been able to find a way of raising enough revenue, mobilizing enough revenue. We've not managed to create an economy that creates jobs. And we've not managed to create an economy where we can have a sustained inflows of foreign exchange. And so because of that, our economy, in terms of that environment that is required for private sector to grow, is very, very weak. It's so weak, that so unstable, that we have not been able to grow as we ought to. I think, see, when you have a cursory analysis of the economies of different countries and how they grew, you can talk about the Western powers, you can talk about America, and you can talk about the success story of Singapore and South Korea. And one thing that is clear, I think I need to make that statement: none of these economies grew on the back of what you call free trade. As in, you can't find one economy that grew on the back of free trade. In all of these economies, even in the very capitalist economies, when they started their economic developmental journey, started on the back of very protectionist approach. So governments, when I say protectionist approach, governments deliberately put money in building enterprises, and then used, once again, their power of fiscal policy in terms of their tariffs to protect these infant enterprises to grow. And then when they grew, when they became powerful, then they found a way of introducing private sector, that's not 100%, but private sector into these businesses for their stability and for their prosperity. I think in the light of that, Kwame Nkrumah took the same approach when Ghana gained its independence. So you found so many industries being developed under his watch. I think it was a recognition that no economy has grown on the back of just export and import. And for you to succeed, you need to deliberately have an import substitution agenda. So Ghana started on the right footing. It was a footing similar to all these big economies that we tend to make reference to. So then, why are we where we are? I think one of the biggest problems that's put us back is, like I said, our overly partisan posture. The fact that we've never been able to see ourselves as partners in the development of this country. We've always seen ourselves as opponents, as if we have two Ghana. And so if a party that you do not belong to sponsors a president, then what we've done is to oppose and practically destroy anything that party does, whether or not those steps inure to our benefits. So when you take Ghana, after all the beautiful factories and steps Kwame Nkrumah took, after his overthrow in 1966, we saw a situation where Ghanaians deliberately pulled every single block that he put together to build the economy of this country. It was in deliberate steps. That culminated in 1982 or 83, I'm not too sure about it, but around 82, 83, Ghana taking a U-turn on the focus of our economy, because that's when we became a fully free trade economy. But we decided to become a free trade economy at a time when we were at our weakest, because we didn't have the enterprises, we didn't have the businesses, the companies that were strong enough to compete at the global level. And so you see our elders tell us that as way back as 1982, the cedi was almost equal to the dollar. And since then, we've seen the free fall to a level where situation where even after the redenomination, the cedi is still in the free fall, because the fundamentals are not there. The fundamentals are just not there. So we talk about the fundamentals, the macroeconomic instability and all those things, but we never seem to talk about in my view, a very basic fundamental, which is be able to pull all Ghanaians together as one. To recognize that in the building of our economy, it's not a matter of partisanship, but it's a matter of we all recognizing that, listen, this is a country. It doesn't matter who is leading. Or the person leading isn't the president of their political party, the president is the president of Ghana. That we all need to have one agenda, a common agenda, sing from the same hymn page, and then build our economy. I think, for me, that's how I want to look at this economic dialogue. I think the essence of Mama pushing this economic dialogue, in my view, is not necessarily because they don't understand the need to have a very strong macro economy. I think they do. I don't think Mama does not have enough economists in his party to understand the need for us to have a strong macro economy and the need for government to live beyond its means. They understand. Even before the economic dialogue, already in the way the settlement was celebrated, it was a clear understanding of the need for government to cut down its expenditure. You understand when you talk about the content of his manifesto. He clearly understands that, listen, government has to deliberately pump money into building some of these entities. They clearly understand. My view is that the essence of this economic dialogue and why it was so important was to create a platform where all Ghanaians, irrespective of your political party, will come together for us to talk about our economy and find a solution that is nationalistic in nature. I think that was the whole essence. Yeah, I understand. My only disappointment was that we were not invited. But I think when I raised that issue on Monday and Edwiji promised that it would be quickly addressed, I think it was addressed. But for me, that's the whole essence. So when you are talking about the economic forum, I have no doubt that that it was because there's a lack of an understanding of the problems that we are faced with. They know. Because we've been to IMF 17 times, and every time we've been to IMF, the problems are the same. a fundamental issue with macros. So they know. Mama understands. I'm sure Nanado understood it. But the problem is one, I said, our inability to get a leader who can bring all of us together and make us understand that this is a national issue, not a partisan issue. In the case of Nanado, it was a clear lack of commitment and lack of integrity. Because they knew the issues. And that lack of integrity was seen not just in how the economy was handled, right? Take even the energy sector also. The fact that they undertook an energy sector recovery program and didn't see through with the recommendations there. Yes, sir. See, so when you look at the economic dialogue in that context, then you can't help but applaud the president. You can't help but applaud the president. That's my personal view. You can't help but applaud the president, and it's so disappointing that the New Patriot Party still can't realize that the reason why they were formed as a party is because of Ghana. Yeah, because if you understand that the reason why you decided to form a party was because you felt that you needed to help build the country, so that you have a different view of how that ought to be done, then you will not deliberately pull yourself away from issues that concerns Ghana. Because that was, if you were not formed, or if you don't become a political party because of Ghana, then why did you become a political party in the first place? And if you don't understand that partisan has its place, partisanship has its place, and that at very critical stages, you need to put your Ghana hat on first than your partisan considerations. So that argument that we said they poison the economy is lame. And for me, it gives credence to my firm belief. I said I made that view here so many times, that this NPP has deviated radically from their core values, and that right now this is a party that is forward by what I call familiar spirit. They do not have the right spirit. Because if you have a leader, and Mama, for instance, His Excellency John Mama is not president of NDC. We need to get it clear. John Mama is not president of NDC. And I know that the president himself recognizes that in how he's handled himself over, as in the first few years of his presidency. Yes, he recognizes that he's president over Ghana. And he understands that in spite of the knowledge that is available to him as himself and within his party, there are certain issues where if he does not find a way of bringing the entirety of Ghanaians together, no matter how beautiful his ideas are, then he can't succeed. Yes, and my brother here, and forgive me for, I mean, he's a socialist. I think I'm a capitalist. But we have a very beautiful relationship because we recognize that it's just a matter of opinion. We recognize, well, that's the beauty of democracy, and that's why one of the fundamental characteristics of this democracy we are running. I know he will call it a bougie democracy, and I will disagree, but that's the beauty of it all, is in the pluralistic nature of ideas. The fact that we need to create a system where we can tap into all these ideas. To what end? So that we can build our country. Because trust me, I don't think we do not know the answer. Ghana, we are at a stage where the issue is not about not understanding what our problems are and what the solutions are. We know. We have too many intellectuals, too many sharp guys in this country. We know. Our problem is a problem of one commitment, a problem of integrity, a problem of patriotism. And for me, I think that was the essence of this national economic dialogue. To create that platform where we understand that to solve this problem, then we need to come together as one people. Otherwise, what happened to Nkrumah will happen. Because as if you read the books, go and look at the economic issue of America and the words of Alexander Hamilton. Unless they protect local industry and let government deliberately puts its money, build industries and protects him, then the Americans independent and then to be recolonized. That was the argument of Hamilton. You go to England, and England didn't start the economy the Adam Smith way. They also deliberately, government built businesses and protected same. They only started preaching free trade when their industries were strong enough, and they needed to then more or less venture into other markets for the purposes of their businesses. These trade wars happening, as in potentially trade wars, Donald Trump and all the rest, it's part of the protectionist agenda. Using fiscal policy to protect the interests of your businesses. And you go to all these countries, and their governments deliberately help them. So let me give another example. Under where the partisanship is killing us. In 2008, America was faced with a banking crisis. In 2008, what was America's approach? The biggest, the doyen of capitalism in the world. What was the approach? Was the approach to say that this is a very cutthroat environment, go and solve your problem, or we use regulation and close you down? You understand? Because everything is intertwined. And that's why, for me, my view, even though I say I'm capitalist, you can't have a system which is 100% either socialist or capitalist. We are all intertwined because we are societal and we are connected. You can't have 100% this, 100% that. It doesn't work that way. And that's the essence of having a pluralistic. And the mere fact that, because I can't be here and say that, oh, because my brother here is socialist, every view he holds is, forgive my language, stupid. No. And I don't think it would be right for him to also see me in that way. It's about, we create a platform where we can have that dialogue, and then because us having dialogue gives us the best opportunity of fusing the various ideas together to get the best system for all of our benefits. So even in America, capitalist America, when they were faced with their banking crisis, they thought that, listen, we can't allow the companies to die because of the ripple effects. So they saved the companies. I go to say, because for a capitalist country, they use state resources to save the entities. They didn't ask, are you an NPP bank? Or are you a Republican bank? Or are you a Democrat bank? No, that wasn't the approach. In 2014, we also faced with the banking crisis. What was Mahama's approach? Mahama didn't go around asking, are you an NPP bank? Or are you an NDC bank? Are you an Ashanti bank? Are you a Fanti bank? He, as a leader, ought to recognize that, listen, if I allow the banks to collapse, the ripple effects on this economy will be dire. So, as a leader ought to, he used his fiscal, the monetary policy to find a way of saving those banks. We didn't even hear that there was any banking crisis. I don't know, I stand to be corrected. In 2014, did you hear that there was any banking crisis? Did you hear that there has been some liquidity support in terms of commercial loans to these entities? We didn't hear. We only go to hear of a supposed banking crisis around 2017, 2018, when there was a new regime who felt that he needed to weaponize the powers we have given him and regulation for political expediency. Because if you recall, in 2017, the propaganda that was floated around was not just about the bank, but also about the fact that Mahama had given them monies and he's going to take a share. Didn't you hear that? That was the impression that we were given. Weaponize the powers we have given you to destroy the economy, like was done in '66 after the coup. It was similar. And then they used via propaganda that Mahama gave the banks money. Give Capital Bank 620 million. Give this bank this 100 million. As if, meanwhile, we all know that, like they say, that the central bank is the bank of last resort. So all the banks go to the central bank for facility as and when they need it. So all those institutions they claimed were dashed money, like toffees by Mama. Apparently, like it's done. Like it's an international practice, they went to Ghana, Bank of Ghana, for commercial loans to aid them in liquidity support. And Bank of Ghana, in its wisdom, understanding the interconnectivity and the need for us to protect our enterprises, give them that support. Give them a system where they won't die, because if they die, if we allow them to die, the impacts will be dire. But we saw another leader who saw things in the eyes of, is he NDC, is he MPP, is he Akan, is he non-Akan? Is it Christian? Is it Muslim? You know, in those very, forgive me, very useless considerations as against a patriotic consideration, and destroyed Ghanaian banks, destroyed the economy of this country, destroyed the, because if you understand intermediation and the role intermediation plays in the economic development of this country, you understand? If you understand what you call economic nationalism, then people in Akura should be bowing their heads in shame in still taking that posture. Or after the resounding signal Ghanaians give that we are not interested in crazy nonsense partisanship, that all we care about is the development of this country. After we now getting a proper leader who recognizes that, listen, I may have been sponsored by the NDC. I'm not the president of NDC. I'm not the president of NDC. I'm the president of Ghana. I'm the president of Ghana. Mama isn't just president of the NDC supporters. He says John Mama is not just the president of the NDC supporters. He's the president over Ghana, over the NPP supporters, over Nana Akufo-Addo, over every single person who calls Ghana. Mahama is a leader. You understand? And if you have a leader who understands that, listen, I understand the macroeconomists. Even just a small, I can understand macroeconomics. How much more all these economists? So they understand. They understand that, listen, we need to have how to manage expenditure. They understand that we need to find a strategy of maximizing revenue. They understand the issues. They understand that we need to create jobs. They understand it better than I do, and more than so a lot of people do. But they still understand that unless we find a way of bringing together all Ghanaians, then what happened to Kwame Nkrumah can happen again. Because Kwame Nkrumah took all the right steps. Government deliberately building industries, government protecting these industries. But what happened? Because of nonsense partisanship, they deliberately destroyed the steps we took as a country. It also happened in 2017. That in spite of all the beautiful steps, the pain, the president of Ghana, Mahama, at that time, took to protect the Ghanaian banks, they destroyed them and destroyed the Ghanaian economy. And you're a president who feel that we can't be going through that vicious cycle. Let me create this economic dialogue. Let me create a system where every Ghanaian will believe, not just because really we are all stakeholders in the economy of this country, but every Ghanaian will believe that, listen, I have a say in how the economy is run. And you have the biggest, what's called, opposition party refusing and giving this useless reason. See, the core factions now, I don't know of any one country that has been developed by outsiders. Every country has been developed by their citizens. It should not matter whether we have different views about the way to go. It should not matter whether or not we belong to different political entities. It should not matter whether we belong to different religions. It should not matter whether we belong to different tribes. We have reached a stage where our Ghanaians should be primal. It should be primary to every single consideration. The time is now where we need to put on the hat of the red, the gold, the green with the black star in this our common agenda to build a strong and vibrant economy where all of our desires to be prosperous can find itself there. And I think we have the right leader. Let us come together as Ghanaians, all of us. Let us put together our partisan considerations. Let us help His Excellency John Mahama in every little way that we can to build that Ghana where our values, where our principles, where our aspirations will have the best chance of being fulfilled. Yes, so the reset agenda is one. You may oppose, I'm not a member of the NDC. Where it's necessary that I criticize, I'm going to criticize. But where we criticize, it should be because we want to build. Let us come together. Let us stop all those useless and unnecessary oppositions. This is the time. Let us support His Excellency to build Ghana. So in the light of that, I commend him for the dialogue. My only disappointment is that I've not seen an action plan. I wish that after the dialogue, and I hope probably they are working on that they give us a clear action plan. That after the dialogue, we will do this. Okay. This is a timeline. We'll do that. This is a timeline. We'll do this. This is a timeline. I think we are going in the right direction. If we do not allow ourselves to be pulled back by partisanship, then we'll be taking a huge step in fulfilling our ambition of using our political independence to give us the economic independence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And from my understanding of what the president has been saying, he seems to be suggesting that whatever is agreed, they will form a part of what the budget that they will present.
Fantastic.
So the budget will allow, will definitely give us clear action.
But because the budget is just a one-year budget, and I think that the donor recommend is a long-term strategy. Beyond the budget, we should also have an action plan. That's that this is what we do this at this time, we do this at this time.
Okay. Thank you. I'll come next to Atik. Atik is now Executive Director for Mass Action for Sustainable Development Africa. One thing, when we were talking about socialism, I was wondering, I thought we were going to say that. Yeah.
I know after we've been meeting and having debate, so I know him. But
I think he rose to the rank of General Secretary at some point of one of the parties that proudly trace their roots to Nkrumahism, the PNC. So, but I'll come to you shortly on it. Just to read what Nana Kumia said. Nana Kumia is considered one of the moderate voices within the New Patriotic Party. And he says, when you listen to President Mahama and the Minister of Finance, they blamed the economic mess on the NPP, accusing us of mismanaging it. So how do you expect us, whom you've accused of mismanaging the economy, to come and engage in discussions about the same economy? President Mahama even went further to accuse us of criminally handling the economy. So what ideas do you expect us to bring to the table when you accuse us in this manner? That's my concern. The fact that you level such serious allegations against us and then expect us to engage and deliberate with you just isn't right. Before I come to Atik, good morning to Honorable Soini.
Good morning, sir.
Nice to see you. Has the swearing been done?
Not yet. You are right.
Okay.
The approval was just done yesterday by Parliament, and
so
we are waiting
by a majority
an invitation from the President for the swearing in. Yes, it was by consensus, by and large. Only 3 people or so were recommended for majority decision.
Okay. So you had a consensus?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought when the minority got angry, they said they will add you to the group.
No, I think they singled out Justice Sai and the 2 that came after him.
Okay.
And recommended for majority decision. But even when the voice vote was called, I think they were feeling too lazy to even
say anything. So the yes had it. Absolutely. Nice to see you. I'll come to you. But first, Atik.
Thank you very much. And let me say good morning to our viewers and congratulations to my brother. I have known that he's going to do an excellent job assisting his minister to deliver the rules all Ghanaians are hankering for. I think this issue of economic dialogue, it is something I've advocated for in the past. Because if you look at the state of our economy today, we need to have a broad-based conversation about what we need to do to our economy to change it from its current state to the state we desire it to be in. For the most part, when we are discussing the economy, everybody talks about the need to transform the structure of our economy. And beyond the fine English, that is where it ends. When we're talking about structural transformation or economic transformation, it simply requires you to move your labor from some sectors to less productive sectors. You understand? So when you take the real sector in this country, you have agric, you have industry, and then you have services. Ideally, industry is supposed to be that sector that is supposed to push us to the next level, but it is less productive compared to agric. But if you look at the history of economic transformation, usually you move from agric, you go to industry and then to services. But we have moved from agric to services and we have ignored industry. So when we talk about changing the structure of our economy, we should be talking about how do we move labor from the agricultural sector to the industrial sector or to industry. That is how we can then, of course, God has blessed this country with all kinds of things, but the problem has been how much value do we add to the things we produce. So a lot of the time what we have are just primary products or primary resources which we don't add value to, and it's because there is a lack of transition of labor from agric to industry. So this is a conversation that we need to have, and I've always said we should have it, so that we can put together concrete ideas that will give meaning and effect to the thought about transitioning or transforming the structure of our economy. So for me, it was a good idea to have such a dialogue. My disappointment is only in the nature of the invitation. It appears that some of the organizers, it could be oversight, but the invitation should have been extended to as many people as possible, because this is a national conversation, and it is a national conversation because it affects every one of us. But maybe for want of time, the organizers decided to narrow the scope to a few organizations or individuals, and so going forward I would expect that they would widen the coverage of people who they wish to participate in that process. My understanding is even that the MPP was not invited officially. Okay. And that for me is problematic. You see, sometimes do not give...
I think Professor Gachi, who was a member of the committee, says they actually sent an invite to the New Patriotic Party.
Okay, then yes. Because one of the claims that they have staked is that they were not officially invited, and that is why they did not appear. But be that as it may, they are excused that, they've been accused. Of course, the state of our economy is not something to be proud of. And if I come and do a review of the books and I know that, or I find out that there are difficulties with the way the economy was managed, I am at liberty to characterize your management in whichever way I find appropriate. That should not disable you from participating in a conversation as important as the national dialogue. But this is not the first time they've rejected such offers or such invitations. I think that we've got to get to a point where, as a country, we look beyond the narrowness and the pettiness of partisanship to the collective interest, which collective interest is having a stronger, resilient economy. And some of the things that were raised at the dialogue are the very things the MPP suffered. Look, we have a narrow tax base. And because partisanship is what drives us, when it comes to the issue of taxation, people easily exploit that because it's easy to go for the juggler with taxation. Oh, you talk about tax, they want to kill you. But you can't grow. Look, you need to raise your revenue. If you look at our revenue to GDP ratio, it's unacceptable. And how do you develop a country without, if you don't want to rely on loans or debt to grow, you need to increase your local mobilization of revenue. And our biggest revenue source is tax revenue. You understand? So we need to have people, we need to have all shareholders participating in the conversation about the economy. Right now, I think the essence of the dialogue was to tease out ideas on how to ensure or achieve macroeconomic stability. Our economy is unstable, and there are so many reasons why it is unstable. Look, our exchange rate as we speak is nothing to write home about. And I keep saying that exchange rate, even though it's supposed to be a function of monetary policy, but you require, to a larger extent, fiscal policy plays a part in the way our exchange rate is determined and how it fares. If your currency is not doing well, it is not because the central bank is not managing their monetary policy well, but it is because there are some extraneous factors that are coming from the fiscal side of your economy which are having an effect on the way your currency is faring. So, for example, if government's policy is that it is borrowing, this is just an example. If government borrows more, mind you, the external debt you contract, when you are doing the service, the interest servicing, or when you are paying back the loan, whether amortization or the interest payments, when you contract it in Forex, you are not paying back in Ghana cedis. The unfortunate thing for us is even that our currency is not convertible. Under the West African Monetary Zone, our currency is supposed to be expendable, or is supposed to be used in other West African monetary zone countries, the 8 of them. But you take Ghana cedis to Nigeria, you can't spend. So beyond our shores, our currency, for want of a better expression, is useless. So you would need to buy forex in order to go and service your external debt. So if government decides to engage in excessive borrowing, which is a fiscal policy decision, so when you have, anytime you present a budget, the deficit is financed in 2 ways. Either you monetize the debt or the deficit, which is you print more money, which we have stopped doing, or you go and borrow. So there is something we call public sector borrowing requirements. If you look at the deficit that you have, that is what informs your public sector, borrowing requirement. Then you go and borrow. So if you are not moderate in the things you want to spend on, if let's say you have $100,000 to spend as an economy, and you decide to spend, your expenditure is about 1 million, it means your deficit is about $900,000. So you need to be rational in the way you set your expenditure if you know very well that your revenue is very low. But it's a fiscal policy decision. You decide, okay, I want to spend more. And once you decide to spend more, you should be rest assured that you are going to borrow more. And once you borrow more, it is going to affect your currency because you are using the little we have in circulation to go and service your debt. And look, exchange rate is just the price of money. You understand? So when you go to the money market, the interest you pay, which is the cost of the money you borrow. In the same way, when you go to the forex market, the exchange rate is the cost of the forex, or the price of the forex. So, and it works with the same dynamics as in a goods market, whereby price determines, demand and supply would determine the price. So if the demand for forex is higher, which is what, because we are an import-dependent economy, that is what our situation is. Government borrows more, so the little forex that should have been in circulation for the rest of us to go and buy, go do our business, government is mopping up the little that is in circulation to go and pay debt. So already there is a shortage in supply of forex. And once supply is less, or there is a shortage in supply, the price and demand outweighs the supply. Certainly the price is going to go up, which means your exchange rate is going to be higher. In other words, your currency is losing value. So fiscal policy is very important, even though, exchange rate is a monetary policy thing. So at the dialogue, it was agreed that there should be some harmonization or collaboration between these two economic policy entities, the Central Bank and the Ministry of Finance, to ensure that we achieve the kind of stability we want. Again, in the past, and we used to have something called fiscal dominance, whereby, you see, the central bank uses open market operations to mop up excess liquidity. They sell their securities so that people will buy Bank of Ghana securities so that they can, mop up excess liquidity. There was a time when the Ministry of Finance was prevailing on the central bank, when they mop up that money, to give it to them to finance their expenditures. So instead of them to mop it up in order to control inflation, they mop the money, give it back to Ministry of Finance to spend again, and the money goes back into circulation. So it becomes difficult to control inflation. So I'm happy that, and it's something I've talked about, and a lot of economists have worried about it, because fiscal dominance is one of the problems that the central bank had when it came to doing their core mandate, which is ensuring price stability. So at the forum, it was reiterated. And that's why I'm disappointed the MPP did not participate. Because it's something that affects every regime. It's not specific to only NDC. These are things that we have experienced over the period. And if we're having a conversation that says, look, we have to get to a point where these things we must stop. We went to IMF, and I'm just saying this in connection with something we went to the IMF with. When you're going to the IMF, you present your memoranda of issues or obligations. These are the things, economic policies they call them, memoranda of economic policies. These are the things I want to do to ensure stability. One of the things the IMF told us was to avoid monetary financing, the printing of money that we saw in previous regimes. So being absent at a forum like this, probably the decisions that will be taken, instead of you to take a cue from that and going forward, you will avoid repeating that mistake. You come back again and begin to finance your debt from the central bank's printing of money. There are some things that there's a famous political scientist I always like to quote. He says that politics is a game of cooperation and competition. It is not always the case that you compete. There are times for the greater good you cooperate. And this is one such example, that you come, let's have things to do with the economy, security, education, health, and the rest. These are things we can have minor disagreements and different courses of action, but generally our views must be in sync. And we need to all be around the same table to have these conversations. Again, but there are some other things they concluded which I have issues with. For example, at the forum, when you read their communique, one of the things is to look at reviewing the tax base, which is good, but they mentioned some specific taxes which I have an issue with. For example, VAT has been mentioned. The implication is that there's going to be an increase in the rate of VAT. Because if you are reviewing the rate of VAT, I do not see how the Ministry of Finance is going to reduce the rate. So obviously it's going to be an upward review. And VAT is a consumption tax, which makes it a regressive tax. It doesn't matter whether you earn more or not. All of you are paying the same. But it affects the low-earning population more than the richer ones. So if we are going to review it upward, it means those of us who earn less, or the low-income, population, subpopulation, it is a population that is going to suffer the most. My view is that there are so many things in this country. There are so many tax bases, or in other words, there are things that could be taxed which we don't tax. So many things. We just, assume it is normal. We should leave them as they are. If we don't broaden and bring more people into the tax net, not necessarily increasing the rates, but making sure that things that are easily taxable, we focus on that. Expanded property rate, everybody talks about it, and nobody really does anything about it. Look, you go to the UK, for example, council tax. Anybody who has stayed in the UK or has had any opportunity to learn a bit about the UK, except students, everybody else pays council tax, and that is their form of property rate. Okay. Once you rent, and you see, they don't even allow the landlords to be the only ones paying. Once you rent, you pay council tax. If you own the property yourself as the landlord without tenants, you pay the property tax, which is called the council tax. But in this country, landlords rent, they increase the rates of rent, or they increase rent at will. They don't pay anything to anybody. How do you expect the very government, you want to come and construct the road from the main junction to your house, to do that when you are not paying the property rate that you need to pay to government? And it's because government has relaxed on that kind of responsibility. We need to widen and not increase the rates. And sometimes the interesting thing, you see, consumption tax is something, maybe the demand for it is inelastic, so whether your money increases or not, you still would have to pay. But there are some things, when you increase the rate, the return on that tax becomes lower. There are some taxes, once you increase the rate, the money you would have had on it goes down. It's called, and the effect is called Laffer effect. It's something that US tried. They were increasing, they needed money under Ronald Reagan. They were increasing rates of taxes, and they were not getting the kind of money they wanted. So they contracted an economist to do a study to see, if I'm increasing the rate of this tax, it means I should be getting more money. How come the reverse is what I'm seeing? So he did a study, and his name was Atalafa. He came up with the finding that once you increase the rate of the tax, it is like two things are likely. First, either they evade tax or they avoid the tax. If I were buying 10 tins of milk, you increase the tax on them, I'll reduce how many tins I buy in a week. You understand? Which means your tax returns are going to go down. So it is not necessarily always the case that when you increase the rate, you get more money. But unfortunately, because VAT is a consumption tax, whether you like it or not, you buy. And like I'm saying, people who earn less are the ones who are going to be affected. So government should look at that. I have a feeling it is going to reflect in the next budget, and that's unfortunate. You said the president said some of these things would find expression in the next budget. I would have preferred that this came earlier. because it's less than a week to the reading of the budget. Okay. How do you, introduce some of these things into the next budget? Because the budget takes a while to prepare, and I'm sure as at the time this was going on, a greater percentage of the job had been done. So how do you factor some of these things? Unless already you pre-planned, then you brought this dialogue to come and, camouflage the issues and make it look as if it was a function of, or it was a result of consensus and conversation among Ghanaians and so on. So I would have preferred that we had it earlier. But again, this is also a good beginning. Let's make this an annual affair. That before the reading of the budget, let's have an economic dialogue. Because when you implement a budget, some issues will come up. And through that, the next dialogue would help you, see how you address those issues and so on. It happens with every policy. And the budget is an economic, usually it's not just the budget, but it's the budget and government's economic policy. So having the dialogue before the next reading will allow you to correct some of the fallouts from the implementation of the economic policy. Again, they spoke about other things, for example, fiscal policy rules. These are rules you impose on yourself to make sure that the economy does not heat up or does not go out of control. In Ghana, we decided to introduce a Fiscal Responsibility Act. But would you believe that we've never implemented it? Parliament passed it, Overwriter suspended it because he wanted to do reckless spending. And his excuse was, oh, we were coming from COVID, so we needed recovery. It was an emergency situation. An emergency cannot be forever. So one would expect that you suspend, if you suspended in 2020, by 2021, 2022, you should have brought it back. But it remained suspended until they went home. The forum was suggesting that there should be a review of that act. We've not even implemented it. So what are we even reviewing? I would expect that government gives this a try. It is from the implementation that you would realize that, oh, these are some of the shortcomings with the act and we need to, do some new introductions and the rest of that. But you haven't even implemented it and we're talking about review already. To that extent, I have some issues with that. And finally, the issue about forex retention. There are so many things we need to do in order to achieve that object. First, our profit repatriation regime, we need to have a second look at it. Expatriates are allowed to repatriate huge profits from this country. They are all part of the reason why our currency is not doing well. These are people who repatriate dollars. Instead of us to make sure that they retain a greater percentage of their profits in dollars in our economy so that our currency can be stable, we allow them to repatriate the forex out. And that is why a lot of investors think that, oh, Ghana is an easy hub or it's an easy destination to come and do business. Because they get away with murder. You go to Dubai, you do business, there is a limit. In fact, the percentage of profit you are allowed to repatriate is very minimal. But for us, we allow them, and all these multinationals will carry all the money away. Already we are struggling with inadequate circulation of forex. The little that we have, they mop up the little, buy the rest that is in the banks, repatriate everything in the name of profits, and we are struggling. That is one. Two, you would also realize that sometimes government says it but doesn't really engage in any concrete action to make it meaningful. We say, oh, we need to cut down on imports. But you don't see anything concrete to allow people to cut down on imports. My brother spoke about protectionism. In today's world, it's a bit difficult to go protectionist. In fact, Ghana has never tried it. Ghana became independent after, the general agreement on trade and tariffs had already been signed. And the very minute we became independent, we went to join GATT. The very minute you join GATT, you are stopped from being protectionist. But like you were saying, that's how a lot of countries developed. They called it nascent industry argument, that we need to grow our nascent industry, so we cannot allow you to come and just be selling everything. Let us grow our industries first. When we get to that point, then we can open up. But we did not have that luxury, which means we need to be more innovative about how we deal with the rest of the world. And one of the things I'm suggesting is you may not necessarily have to impose tariffs on imports or increase tariffs on imports or introduce other non-tariff barriers, but let's make sure that the things that we can comparatively produce in this country, it looks simple, but our politicians make it look as if this is rocket science. If it is toothpick we want to produce, you need a raw material, which is bamboo. If you have it, what do you need? The next is setting up localized industries or plants to do the production. It doesn't take rocket science. I've always said that this country, our problem is we like highfalutin economic programs. Let's do one, what was the name? One man, one district.
One district, one factory.
One district, one factory.
One village, one.
Yes, at the point it became one man, one factory. One man, one district, one factory. You see, it sounds very, sophisticated, but all we need is cottage industries. Yeah. You go to the Republic of Gambaga, and we can set up a small factory that is processing shea butter. You go elsewhere, and there are different things they can do. You don't need that to be huge. China did not start with the kind of huge factories and industries you are seeing today. They started even today. And what they have done is to identify growth poles. Growth poles based on comparative advantages in the production of materials, of products. So you go to a place like Foshan, it's just furniture and wood related products. That's all they do. Everybody in that enclave is producing that. Can't we identify these growth poles and say that in the northern region, for example, they have a comparative advantage in the production of, say, soya beans? This is just an example. Can't we get people to go and set up factories that will produce drinks from soya beans? So this soya milk and the rest of that, or what is it called? Biscuits that are made from soya beans. I mean, can't we have, a hub, local hub, where people who are interested in doing these things, we say that, okay, there are farmers who produce these things, and all they do is to transport it or export it in its raw form. Let's get people to come and set up cottage industries along this product. Then government gives them the support. Let them start, government give them the support, and government should also be that entity that would help them get market for it. We started with these free zones. It has become a nightmare. It's actually a huge failure. So the money we pump into the free zones enclaves, we can re-engineer our thoughts and direct that money into the setting up of cottage industries, because it has become a hub for scams. People come, and because of the tax holidays they enjoy, they operate for 10 years without paying anything. And when they are about to exhaust the 10 years, they reinvent them, they liquidate, reinvent themselves with a new name. So for a long time, they never pay taxes, and they are not doing the very things for which the free zones were set up. That is, you produce and export 70% of what you produce, and we consume 30% of that. We don't see that happening. So my view is, let's collapse that free zones idea, because it has failed. Move into economic zones or these growth poles I'm talking about. Set up industries, cottage industries, along the lines of things you have local comparative advantage over their production. And I can say with certainty that if we are able to do this, if we adopt this model, Nkrumah started with import substitution, but that was at the macro level. After his overthrow, everything just went south. We need to reinvent ourselves. Like I said, protectionism is not the way to go, but we need to get innovative. Once you start these things, and West African market is enough even for us. You don't even need to worry about exporting it to other countries. The West Africa sub-regional market is huge enough for Ghana to be that entity. Look, Ghana can be the Dubai or the China of West Africa and even Africa, because we have what it takes. What we need is clear plans to ensure that we add value to what we have, attract people to come and buy, or get our people to export it to neighboring countries or to the sub-regional market, and so on and so forth. So for me, in conclusion, it was a good forum. We need to have more of that. But like I said, we need to widen also the scope of people or of participants, so that at the end of the day, we know that as much as possible, we have tried to include every shade of Ghanaian opinion in the conversation. This is the way to go. And you see, there is a pattern that is growing. My prayer is that His Excellency the President and government are able to stick to it. Government is taking a cue from the present devastated state of our economy. And like I said, when your revenues are low, you cut down on your expenditure. It's something that featured very prominently in the conversations. And government already before the budget is taking steps to ensure that it is cutting down on expenditure. The celebration we had is a typical example of the fact that we actually can be austere in our expenditure. And if we are austere in our expenditure, trust me, and we continue like this, and we do not destroy it in an election year, Ghana will be where we want it to be. Yes. And for me, like I said, these conversations are very important. Let's keep them going. Let's invite as many people as possible. And like I said, let's begin to think about economic zones. Let's begin to think about economic zones. To change the structure of our economy, it means we need to move people from agric into industry. We need a new industrialization policy. Not one man, one industry, or one man, one factory. It should be localized cottage industries based on comparative advantage in the production of the things that they are setting up to produce. You don't go to Gambaga and go and set up a gold processing factory. It will fail. You understand? Or you go to Tamale North, for example, and say you want to set up a cocoa processing factory. It will fail. Let's look at what the locals have comparative advantage over in their production. Let's encourage people, open up, set up economic zones. Look, every region, you can say that in this region, and because of the increase in the number of regions, it becomes easier for as many districts to be covered as possible. You say, for example, in Northeast, we are dedicating you go and find, and there are more than enough lands. Say this place is going to be called the Northeastern Regional Production Hub, or whatever name you give to it, or economic zone. And studies would be conducted to know that when you come to Northeast, these are the things they can produce at relatively cheaper cost. That is why we talk about comparative advantage. That the amount of money you use to produce that particular product is cheaper in that locality compared to if you were to produce it elsewhere. Then you say these are the things that can be produced comparatively cheaper here. If you are an investor and you are interested, please come. You go to Upper East, this is what you have. So an investor already has that information, that my interest is to produce glass. Oh, Western Regional Production Hub, that is where I think I can, survive, because Bosu is in Western region, right? Bosu is in Western region. So, or you want to produce ties. I mean, you know where the raw material is, proximity and the rest of it. So for me, if we are able to do this in the in the sincerest manner, not because we want to score political points, because that industrialization policy we saw was just a campaign promise. Not so much thought went into it, and that is why up to today we don't have made in Ghana products which are coming from the very factories that were promised. Do you see products on the shelves coming from those supposed factories that were supposed to be in each district? You don't see, because not so much thought went into it. It was just a campaign promise, and very little was done to give effect to that.
Great. Thank you very much. A few things that you remind me of. I think when we were talking about region specific, then I remember Honorable Suhini's senior, Alhaji&Alhaji, always talks about how the Yagba area is a fantastic area for grape rice and among others. Yeah,
we're having millers there. Yes,
some of us are doing small.
No, he's a medium farmer. No, he's doing very well too. He's also doing.
We are medium farmers. This is a large scale.
Oh yes,
and it's the plain is there.
Yeah,
it's vast.
And it's shocking that we don't have rice processing plants in that area.
So one of our colleagues have started setting up one. I don't know if you have his permission to.
Okay. I think I have an idea.
I think it's Honorable Akando.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He's also, I think, after Inus of saying,
he is the next
farmers.
One district, one.
No, one district, one. You know, they set up 5 common user facilities. So I think there's a rice processing, there's an Asalugu. As to whether it was completed, as to whether it was completed, I don't know. But I know that there was a 5. There's a common user facility.
I remember there was some.
So in the past, Nasia used to have one, but that was in the days of Nkrumah. After we sold almost everything. You understand? And I think it's our time we brought that back again. Like you have just, this is a right example.
Yeah.
That enclave. Look, we shouldn't be importing Vietnamese rice. We shouldn't.
Anyway, thank you. Just that on the matter of the free zones, I think I know a Ghanaian entrepreneur creating thousands of jobs within the free zones enclave. Imports up to about 100% of what they produce there. So I think the matter is enforcement, ensure that the people are there actually going by the rules. Anyway, a few things. Lengi Chawenate says creativity in political heads of regions called regional ministers is cardinal. You have to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the region and engage in its realignment. Regional exhibitions are held periodically to identify each with its skill and specialty in relation to harnessing is easy to reach raw materials. Abna Pokuaka, join us on Facebook. I'm reading from Facebook. Says Nkrumah set up industries across the country at the appropriate locations where raw materials were available. The first thing to do is to visit the industrialization agenda, bringing some modifications if necessary to put the country on the right path. Abna, thank you. Kofi Simon says, please, we have Bonsa in the western region and Bonsu in the eastern region. Yeah. And there's a okay, Alfred, please look at your message and resend. Samuel Bois says the VAT as a tax has been splintered into various variable percentages so far as importation of goods is concerned. The review is therefore to consolidate it under one tax portfolio so that one importer may not end up paying more in percentages than another depending on their products. And I think there's been that complaint consistently. And also the issue of the levies being taken out, NHIS levy and Get Fund levy being straight levies. Kofi Simon says, brilliant contribution. The repatriation of the dollars is not proper. Alhaji says, please, you rather decrease tax for more people to pay. Don't increase any tax now. Thank you for that. Francis Asensu said the elite political class decided to give our national resources to the West for free and come to the citizens to take more taxes. Where are the natural resources? Why don't the politicians talk about them? This one, your name is quite interesting. It says, I think it says Jai Jimino or something. So the panelists mentioned Singapore as economies that are doing well. Singapore is the third with 84 points on Transparency International, CPI. The fight against corruption is vital to economic development. Can you imagine the sheer quantity of hospitals, roads, affordable housing, water treatment plants we could have built with $58 million chucked into the bottomless national cathedral abyss? That's him sending that comment. There's Prince Issa Abdullah Royal says, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Edward Bazaar says MP is actually not a political party but a tribal party. They talk about their tribal interests than national interests. He says, Rahim Zijevano says, I opine that the MPP was formed out of hatred for a personality wanted him what they did to us. I wanted to do to him what they did to Osajifo. They refused to accept the leadership of someone they felt was inferior because of his tribe. MPP was never formed with Ghana in mind. Let lawyer clearly understand. There's Michael Ajaholu who is joining us, watching us. Thank you. Compliments. Samala Pia says he was humiliated, despised, and all sorts of words to describe him were used against him, but he won the election with 1.8 million difference. His opponents had a shameful 38%, which has never happened before. So those are just some of the comments on Facebook. I'm also in it.
Yeah. Sona, let me say good morning to you. Good morning to our viewers, especially the very good people of the Tamale North constituency. And good morning to my brothers around the table. Lawyer Pierre Dankwa, I take who I owe a big apology to, but I hope you'll understand the times. And comrade, thank you very much for having me here this morning. And our first issue has to do with the national dialogue on the economy. You know, I've listened to a couple of critics argue that the president and by extension the NDC, whenever it talks about the need for us to come together to discuss a problem confronting this nation, it is because we lack ideas. And for me, it speaks to the boastfulness, the pride, and the arrogance of people who make such comments. Because you ought to know that in life, and it is expressed in our local dialect through proverbs, two heads are bigger than one. No matter how long your hands are, you cannot embrace the baobab tree. I mean, it's expressed in various forms that it is always better to test your ideas against that of others. So when you find people arrogantly say that a decision to engage everybody on how to tackle a problem confronting everybody is an indication of lack of ideas, you should know that it's obviously coming from a very naive and ignorant person. So we promise a national dialogue, not because we didn't have the ideas. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is a thinker. I mean, if you have listened to him, he's been in the political space for a very long time. In fact, in some cases, longer than some of the critics. But he's hardly inconsistent. His brilliance has always shown. But he's still humble enough to say that because this is a matter that confronts all of us, let's all discuss it. So that even if at the end of the day, it is my idea that will be adopted, you will know why I am taking that decision. That for me is a show of magnanimity. And like he said in his speech on that day, we all have a role to play in building this country. Like the youth anthem says, we are all involved. The fact that we elect leaders does not mean our thinking faculties should go on a holiday. We are all involved. And it takes leaders with the presence of mind and the humility required to lead, to invite all of us to bring our ideas on board. And so I commend His Excellency the President and the government for, living up to this promise of organizing this very important national economic dialogue. And there's no question about whether or not it is necessary. It is imperative that we have a conversation about our economy today, because we all are living the economy that the NPP wrecked in the last 8 years. We are living it. Like, hardly will you find a Ghanaian home that is not living the economy that they have wrecked. If it is not about collapsing banks where families are touched and destinies of families changed for the worse, then it's about very crude haircuts that even in some cases threatened the investments of pensioners. Some of the very vulnerable in our society have all been affected by this wreckage. And so it's become important in an unprecedented turn of events. Even economic theories we were taught in school have been challenged by the mismanagement of this economy. T-bills, investing in T-bills, for example. 101 investment, you are told, is the safest. It became, you know, a candidate for haircuts. So, I mean, we couldn't have had the need for a national conversation like we do now. Never before have we gotten so low that we are unable to pay our debts. Not even during the Achampon era. Because the Achampon era was a decision. Yentia. This time, it is not a decision. Yentimintia. That's the difference. There's a difference between saying I won't pay and I can't pay. I won't pay may mean that you are just being intransigent, you are just being recalcitrant. But I can't pay is a helpless situation. And that is where we find ourselves. So there was indeed the need for such a conference, such a conversation. How did we get here? Because if you do not know how you tripped, you can never prevent yourself from falling again. That's why it is said in Dagbani that Ailu Alehlan tu shele, kan lu shele. When you trip and fall, you don't look at where you fell, you look at where you tripped. Have you ever seen anybody rising from a fall and looking at the ground that he fell at? You are looking at where you tripped. So it's important that you have that conversation of how you got here, how we all got here, so that we can now take decisions together as to how to get out and how never to return to that, you know, point. So there was a need. Then you hear, like you were telling us, Akumi and others say, oh, but you said we criminally manage the economy, so why do you want us to participate? Well, maybe if that is the reason why the MPP didn't participate, then it speaks volumes of their guilt. It speaks volumes of their guilt. Then it means that they have accepted and conceded that they criminally manage the economy. Otherwise, there were no police officers or EOCO officers at the conference to arrest anybody from the NPP stock. So if you believe that you were innocent, you didn't criminally manage the economy, that was, for me, an opportunity for you to show up and defend the decisions that you took, and even educate the panel, the people who were gathered, about some of the policy decisions that you took. And if probably you are still waiting for the harvest period, you give indication as to when we will begin to feel the full benefit of the decisions that you took. No one would have arrested any of them for showing up to defend those policies. But if they decided not to show up because they were tagged as people who criminally manage the economy, then it just means that they accept their guilt and that they indeed criminally manage the economy and had no business, contributing to how to rescue it, even though I would have still wished that they did show up to proffer some ideas and solutions. But Sona, again, like I said, we are living the economy. Was it criminally managed or not? Does it have to come from President Mohammed's mouth? Are we not experiencing the effects of the criminal management of that economy? Wasn't the decision to collapse banks in most cases criminal? I mean, listen to the stories. Listen to some of the stories. You are not qualified to have a bank because you are undergoing prosecution. And so we are closing the bank down. I mean, what sense is that? Because the funds you use to open the bank is under prosecution. So, I mean, you are guilty even before the case is over. Listen to the Unibank story. Listen to the UT story. And some of the decisions based on the stories we have heard, which by the way, Sena, have not been challenged by the people involved. They haven't been challenged. We heard the UT story. Up till today, no one in this government who was involved in the decision making have come out to say that Prince Amwabin lied. And if you listen to those stories, you can only come to the conclusion that it may have been motivated by criminal intentions, wicked intentions. I mean, they didn't even care about the lives of the workers of these banks. Criminal minded. My brother Atik was talking about the Bank of Ghana financing government gluttonous appetite. Clearly, well, he didn't use those terms, but he was talking about the Bank of Ghana financing. Those are my terms. But clearly, that is what the records are showing all of us. That indeed, they were engaged in excessive borrowing from the Bank of Ghana. Government was engaged in excessive borrowing from the Bank of Ghana, exposing even the bank to several risks, which has resulted also in the inflationary hikes that we have seen lately and the exchange rate crisis that we have had to deal with. So that was criminal because some of the financing was done against the bank's own acts, the requirements, like the need for parliamentary approval, for example, for some of the activities that they did. Criminal. And the unbridled borrowing. The unbridled borrowing was criminal. You know why? Because again, there's evidence that borrowing benefited their private companies. That excessive unbridled borrowing that led us into the ditch where we have become debts unsustainable and unable to pay our debts actually enriched their private companies. What is more criminal than that? What is more criminal than that? Putting the whole nation, like just throwing all of us under the bus so that their companies can profit. So I think that President Mahama was even charitable. Because Sena, I'm sure you have heard the ECG story. How does a state agency import electrical materials worth $500,000, leave it for it to be confiscated by the port authorities, and auction to an individual for 100,000 Ghana cedis? Note the denominations. You procure items worth $500,000, bring it to the country, fail to clear it, port authorities sell it to an individual for 100,000 Ghana cedis, and then he turns around to sell it to ECG for $300,000. I mean, if that's not criminal, if that's not a criminal management of the finances of a state-owned agency, what is? What is? And at the forum, President Mahama also revealed something. He talked about how an agency procured kits meant for poultry farmers through single sourcing. And the excuse for doing single sourcing was urgency. And they awarded the contract to this single sourced company, knowing very well that there is a manufacturer of these kits in town. The manufacturer sells these kits for about 4,500 Ghana cedis. 4,500 Ghana cedis per kit. Yet, through single source, they awarded it to an individual who purchased these items from the manufacturer at a price of 4,500 cedis per kit and turned around to sell it to government at 6,600 Ghana cedis, walking away with about 21 million Ghana cedis free cash. And that's not all. When I heard this story and I started probing, I realized that it was, what do you call it? These things they use to rear poultry. The feeding and the garages. Okay. I don't know how to get. That's what this company purchased. And you know what? They actually bought these things and supplied them to farmers without giving them any checks. About 10,000 units. 10,000 units. They supply them to farmers without giving them any checks. Now this administration is even asking for the list of the beneficiaries so that they can provide the check, and they don't have the list.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes. But the things have been bought
and supplied
and distributed and payment made.
I see.
I mean, if it's not criminal, then what is? If it's not criminal, then what is? So you see, I think that the economy was so badly managed that we needed to have this national conversation to highlight how never to run an economy and to drum it home so well that successive governments will be better guided. And I was very excited about the participants that I saw at the forum. People from civil society organizations, people from financial institutions, and from all walks of life. I concede that there may have been some oversight when, you know, attention was drawn to some of the groups that should have been invited. I concede that that shouldn't have happened. I'm happy that in some cases they quickly rectified the situation. But I think that Mr. Ishmael Yamson and the team deserve tons and tons of commendation. With the caliber of people they put together, the work that they did even before the day of the forum should tell you that these are people who may not even have a stake in the future of this country. If all things, you know, if all, how do they say it in economics? Holding all factors constant. Because I saw them in their 70s, in their 80s. And I could see the sleeplessness on their faces, but still exuding with ideas and the commitment to help build the future economy of this country. I could only admire them from where I sat and pray for them. And I hope that the decisions that have been taken will lead to lasting impact, so that one day it will be said like His Excellency President Mahama predicted, that 68 years after gaining political independence, it was at that forum that economic independence was initiated from. It is my prayer and my sincere hope. It will be the greatest celebration of the lives of those who have contributed in making that event a success. And I can only say that knowing the character of President Mahama and watching the team that he has assembled so far, listening to the finance minister, Honorable Atuforsen, that day, and noticing how quickly, Sena, he transformed from being a minority leader with the political, undertones and vocabulary in his discussion of the economy, to that statesman of a finance minister talking, yes, still about the ills of the economy, but also pointing to the readiness of the team to fix those ills and to do better. I can only, be excited about the future and wish those involved in the management of this economy very well. And Sena, because it has an impact on the role that I also will play at the Ministry of Roads. Sena, my boss has been lamenting, Honorable Kwame Agoja Govins. He's been lamenting about the indebtedness at the road ministry. I remember, I think Honorable Makwata, when he took over in 2017, complained that the road sector was indebted to the tune of about 17 billion or so. And he said we had crushed the sector. Today, commitment, 100 billion plus. 100 in just 8 years. Actual, debt, that is certificates raised and not paid, about 20 billion.
This is the interest that has ballooned to this.
No, that is commitment.
Okay.
That is awards done.
Yeah.
So, okay, do this and,
But on cash basis?
On cash basis, it's about 20 billion. And that's a good question you ask. When you work the interest on delayed payment, it's about 50 billion. I mean, yourself. And yet, this is not, if this is not criminal, what is? And yet, the little drops that Ghanaians didn't complain about, all they asked for was an improved system of collection. I'm talking about road tolls. Even that they couldn't fix. They threw away. If that's not criminal, what is? So it does have an impact, and I wish and hope that this discussion will lead to the transformation of our economy. Thank you, Sena.
No matter what, you still have a very difficult job to do at the Roads Ministry. As for complaining, you cannot complain. Because I was coming to complain to you about something that has to do with...
no, it's not complaining. It's complaining about the debt without the results.
Yes.
And the,
really?
And the need.
Yes.
That we still have out there.
You know the gold...
You know that he's a very
hardworking
person who loves challenges.
You know the road very well.
Which road?
Now, when you go over the Circle interchange, the Kwame Nkrumah interchange, the new interchange at, what do you call it?
STC area.
You go over it. You know when you're on the road towards Kwalibu, that particular road, you...
Just say towards Radio Bowl.
Yes, towards Radio Bowl. Immediately you go over the interchange, you meet a very terrible road. Yeah, so whilst they're supposed to deal with congestion and traffic, it's creating traffic towards the interchange. So I don't know who did what the scope of the contract is, but we're wondering how come they didn't go through that traffic like that goes to
sometimes it's just the irresponsibility of some of our contractors. In fact, I think that was on Wednesday. The minister, graciously, even though I haven't been sworn in yet, invited me to join an inspection tour that he was having on the Ofanko stretch, where a contractor is on site. Yeah, because of the complaints that the ministry had received from motorists on that road. And also the Akosombo, Tema Akosombo road, the TT Brothers area all the way, the expansion project. So we toured all of these areas, and it came to light that as part of the contract, the contractors usually are supposed to make the roads more trouble, even as they do the construction. They are supposed to make it more trouble. So the minister insisted that they must do that. And so even when we got to Ovanko, they started watering the place and trying to level it, you know, at least for people to use. But I mean, he took notice of that and insisted that he was hoping it will not be a 9-day wonder, and that after our departure they will continue to do that stretch every day, because it does. And then the TT Brothers area, in fact, he gave them up to Monday to ensure that they put some coating at least on the depressed parts of the road, so that it can ease the movement of vehicles on that stretch, to also reduce the traffic. He also, you know, indicated that we'll be partnering with the assemblies and the regional coordinating council to clear some portions of the road, you know, to create some temporary ease for motorists until the whole construction is done. So yes,
you do have a lot of work to do. I don't envy you at all.
An audit on the roads.
How
many roads were awarded? How many of them actually have been
constructed? That's true.
Because this case of poultry thing is likely in the new sector to the similar.
There are some fictitious lists and claims there.
Well, Comrade Najib will conclude the discussion for us. But before that, there are a few comments on Facebook. Then I'll come to the WhatsApp number. Nila, he says, Ghana is a joke to have some MPP members with questionable characters in Parliament being addressed as honorable. How honorable are they? There's Abna Pokuya Aka, who says it is instructive to note that Ethiopia is a corrupt-free country, a corruption-free country. I have experienced this. The citizens feel ashamed to engage in corrupt practices, leading to a safe environment for business growth. We must eschew corruption in all forms. David Oforia is also joining us. Says the MPP should not allow the Nanado faction to continue to dictate how the party should conduct itself in relation to issues of national interest. Yes, the party governed for the past 8 years, but it was the Nanado group which was in charge and indeed criminally mismanaged the economy. The MP has brilliant, well-meaning individuals who could have participated in the National Economic Forum in the interest of national development. Ablajo Biliemo says enough of the numerous talk. It's time for accountability. All those who run the country down need to be punished. It's time for action and prosecution. Komla Genya says this is direct to Honorable Suhini. Every contractor who will be awarded road contracts henceforth should be made to sign a bond to do a quality job. The road should last a certain number of acceptable years. Failure to deliver on this should attract penalty, including jail term. That's coming from Komla Genya. That's directly to Honorable Suhini. This one says, thank God for having people who would share their views genuinely, like the man in red top. That's a tick. He visited what we did wrong and what let Ghana down. Let's make do with what we have than being a copycat. What Ghana produces should be developed than engaging in things that we don't have. We could not salvage our production of the chocolate factory for the world to see that really Ghana is the best place that anybody can get the best chocolate. We rather became a copycat and started automobile production. What did Ghana benefit from that? How does a farmer in vegetable become a good fisherman first? The farmer does not know anything about what water that breeds fish. Please, it is not too late to do the right thing. Thank you very much for the comment. This is also from our WhatsApp platform. Says, please, our road from Kpon to Tema is hell. When are they going or back from? When you're going or back from work? Set. In fact, I think I might just have opened the Pandora's box on this matter of roads. Abbas Amogobo in Facebook says President Mahama has said it over and over again that Ghanaians know he's much better and can fix Akufo-Addo's Bawumia messes. That's why they voted massively and unprecedented for him, and he shall fix it. Yes, he's on course to fixing the economy. He only needs our full support. Abbas, thank you. More says, I digested through the reign of Akufo-Addo and MPP in general, and what I realized is that, one, the touting of former American president's speech read to us at the inauguration. The citizens are not spectators, etc. 2. Sit for cash at the presidency for indigenous businessmen, which Alan Chomantin spearheaded. 3. Those were the tricks Akufo-Addo used to test our intelligence and capitalize on our weaknesses to dupe our country. Togbe, thank you very much for sending that comment. Bra Kofi sent this from Kumasi. If you're calling Barbers Forum and the crabs don't show up, that is an arrogant posture, but simply means that in their locality, they don't even have the heads not to talk about knowing how to baba. I learned the Makola and KJTI women will soon be having their form of economic forum, and MPP can show up over there because that is where the economic credentials belong to. Bra Kofi, thank you very much. Emmanuel Inside Pokwa says MPP will be zeroed in Parliament next 4 years, and we will have no MP in Parliament to stop interrupting and causing distraction against the good works of the NDC. MPPs, okay, thank you. Emmanuel who sent that from Pokwase. Dennis Akwete is also joining us. The National Economic Dialogue was in order not because the NDC lacks ideas, but it was to seek consensus on what government wants to do, which is key in this critical time, as some critical decisions by government may call for tightening the belt by all, and therefore Ghanaians' participatory engagement is necessary, and that's what the dialogue intended to achieve. That said, extend my congratulations to Honorable Suini for me on his appointment as Deputy Rules Minister. I sent him a WhatsApp message, but it has not been read, and I can understand. I can imagine the volume of messages that might have greeted him on that account, and will continue. Thank you. There's also Justice who sends this. Honorable Suini, please, we at Mumpurugu are begging you to help us with our road. It's very bad. So I'll conclude with this because I think I've started. It is a good morning. Thanks to the host, Sena, and all the panelists for sharing their thoughts on national issues. We hope better things will emanate from the discussion so far. Frederick Pugo sent that. Comrade Najib?
Yeah, Comrade Sena. Good morning to you. Good morning to our viewers and my senior brother and comrades here. First of all, let me take the opportunity to also congratulate my brother, for a position well deserved, and also add my voice to speaking about the Wa Road. I'm sure he's very much aware of what I'm talking about. The Bole Bamboy Sola to Wa Road is a terrible place. It's so terrible that no pregnant woman can travel on that journey. It takes about 18 hours to do that journey from Accra to Wa. And it's just not potholes. We're talking about manholes. And if anybody has traveled on that road, you know what I'm talking about. So I know the tax is Herculean, but we have nowhere else to lay it but on your head. So yeah, let me good. So good. So I hope you prioritize that. I'd also like to say a very happy International Women's Day to all our women in Ghana and across the continent and beyond that. Today we celebrate them for their strength, their dedication, and their support, as mothers, as sisters, and as wives. Without them, this world could not be any better. So I would like to say a very big thank you to them as they celebrate today's occasion. Now on to the main issue, which is national economic dialogue. I mean, Sena, dialogue is dialogue. Even people at war at a certain point, dialogue. You understand? It's not all the time that you trade insults and disagree with one another, like my brother Atik said. It's at a certain point you need to cooperate. And that's why those of us from the socialist background would always choose cooperation over competition. It's important that you cooperate with one another as far as nation building is concerned. And to the political class, what we'd like to say to them is that, listen, we are not interested in your big English when you come to sit in studios and when you pen things down about, what you intend to achieve only to get the political power, and then, you start trading insults with one another. What's important to us is that it doesn't matter where you sit on the political divide. We should be able to come together, tease out ideas, brainstorm, you know, to come out with concrete solutions to our concrete problems. What we would like to see is how food prices go down, how energy prices go down, how, rent and utilities in general go down for us. But clearly, those who refuse to be part of this noble, dialogue, what it tells us is that they are not interested in our welfare. What they are interested in is winning political power, mismanaging our economy, mismanaging our resources. That's what seemed to be, their priority, and not the nation as a whole's interest. We are not surprised. This is not the first time that they've refused to show up for a dialogue of this nature. I think the Century Accord, they refused to show up. So to come back to us with this flimsy excuse of, oh, I have been accused of mismanaging an economy, or I've been accused of criminally managing it, is the reason I will not come to the table. Well, for your information, it is not only the NDC that said that you mismanaged the economy. The people who voted you out included some people within your own party. And if you take the data, it is clear that the 58% of Ghanaians who endorsed President Mahama, if you look at the figures, they are not all NDC members. So it is not only the NDC that has said that you have mismanaged the economy, but a large chunk of the Ghanaian population have said that. And until you learn to come down from your high horses, okay, stop being arrogant and show genuine interest in our problems, show genuine interest in our challenges as a nation, you will continue to be where you are, and if you are not careful, you will suffer a worse defeat than what you have suffered in the recent or just ended elections. Having said that, let me take the opportunity to commend the NDC, for a bold initiative. It's a noble one. It takes a lot of humility, to admit that I do not know it all. Of course, Honorable Suyini has said it is not the lack of ideas within the NDC side that they are inviting others on the other side. It's true. But it's also a mark of humility when somebody says, look, I have these ideas, but why don't you come down? Let's sit, let's jojo, let's brainstorm and come out with the best of ideas. Because what it does is that it reduces the margin of error at the implementation level. So, like I've said, dialogue is always better than trading insults. It's better than the collective failure of the political class. When what the opposition has to understand is that the ordinary Ghanaian is losing faith in the political elite. They are just not losing faith in you, but the political elite class itself. Most Ghanaians are losing faith, and the data is there for them to look at. Having said that, I'd also like to strongly underscore the point. I'm a socialist, and my position when it comes to, the economy and how it is managed, especially under this neoliberal, architecture or framework. We can have 1,000 dialogues. We can have monthly dialogues, annual dialogues on the economy. But will it take us to where we actually want to be? As long as these dialogues are within the framework of the neoliberal economic order, as long as these dialogues do not defy the instruments, all right, that are being used by the Western economic pundits and the Western economic prowess, using tools like IMF and World Bank, as long as we move in the direction of these tools, instructions given to us to do A, B, C, we will always move in the wrong direction. And Lawyer Danko rightly said it. These institutions have given us direction, they have supervised us, they have told us what to do and what not to do for 17 to 18 times. And yet, we keep discussing our economy around those frameworks. It tells you that we must take a pause. We must take a pause as a nation and start thinking of how to positively defy some of these orders. The marching orders of IMF and World Bank will always point us in the wrong direction. Because you have an economic framework that is designed to function in such a way that the so-called third world countries will always stay where we are supposed to be. Let's ask ourselves, why is it that thousands of units of our currencies are always worth 1 or 2 units of currencies of countries that do not own gold, don't own oil, at least, or at best sometimes, just a few barrels of oil, that do not own any natural resources? Why is it that we do not start having dialogues around how to own, control, and distribute the resources, our God-given resources within the continent? So I think that, yes, these dialogues are important. These dialogues will only enable us to move feebly, sometimes in a very positive direction. But what they actually do is that they treat the symptoms rather than the problem itself. You understand me? What are the symptoms? The symptoms are the macroeconomic indicators, the microeconomic indicators. These are symptoms. It's not the problem itself. So in order for us to tackle the problems themselves, we need to start thinking outside of the box. We need to start thinking on how to defy positively the economic architecture and framework. We need to start having dialogues around patterns with which to grow. I've always said that, and it's a popular school of thought within the socialist bracket, that it is absolutely crazy, pardon my word, to think that we can grow using the same patterns as Europe and in the Americas. These are economies, like Lawyer Danko rightly said in his submission earlier on. These are economies grown on, using the transatlantic slave trade. They accumulated a lot, okay, and then decided to put up a certain framework and force everybody else to sign on to this framework so that they can have control whilst everybody else follow. So how is it possible that you would want to extricate yourself by still following, this same framework? So our dialogues must start looking at how to defy this order. I heard somebody send his contribution, I think through WhatsApp, or was it Honorable Suhini talking? I think it was Honorable Suhini talking about, the difference between the NPP now and then the Achampon regime, where one is saying that Minti Mintia, the other one is saying that Yintia.
That's what I'm saying.
The latter is a noble idea. We will not pay. And can you imagine if all states within the West Africa, in fact, the West African continent itself has said, look, to IMF and the World Bank, we are not paying. And if for anything at all, let's sit on the table and talk about who owes who. Okay? What do you think would have happened to the IMF and the World Bank? They would have collapsed. So it's high time we started thinking of how to extricate ourselves from this economic subjugation. Okay? We have been subjugated economically and restrained And, you know, miseducation is leading us to think that Africa can grow, like I've said, using the same pattern. Miseducation, again, is what is leading us to believe that when micro and macroeconomic indicators are all in the positive, then, you know, you would have developed to some level. Do you remember the President Mills era? The macroeconomic indicators, most of them were very positive. You understand? Did it stay that long? No. Because you don't have control over any sector of your economy. Take the extractive industries in Ghana. They have about what? 9 major companies that extract gold in this country, including Goldfields, Anglo Gold, Sanko, you name them. Not a single one of them is owned by Ghanaians. I think it's just recently Ashanti Gold came up, where we have, you know, a few Ghanaians who are actually private people, you know, owning huge shares within that company. We pride ourselves as the 6th largest producers of gold in this country, and yet all we take, I mean, in this world, and yet all we're looking at are royalties. Who talks about a piece of the bread when you can own the bakery? This is the analogy I always give. This is our country. These are our resources. Why is it that every time the conversation around these things come up, it is about how do we scale up our royalty percentage? How do we? No. How do we start owning the mines? Take the other parts of the extractive industry, our oil. What's our stake in it? Let's move to telecoms, the telecommunication industry, MTN, Vodafone, and the rest. Which of them do we own? So, and I can go on and on in all the sectors to tell you that we don't have control. And until you have absolute control, or at least some level of control, okay, you cannot be dictating the pace. Somebody else will always dictate the pace for you. My brother Atik spoke about fiscal prudence, which I agree with him. Financial prudence and fiscal prudence, yes, it helps. It helps to a very large extent, especially operating within that network and framework that I'm talking about. But we ought to start thinking outside of it and realizing that our problem goes beyond that. What's the way forward? Self-reliance. We need to start relying on ourselves. Nobody is going to come into this country or this continent to grow it the way we want it. The British determined where they wanted to be, and they are where they want to be. The Americans did the same. Everybody else is looking out for their interest except us. And that, for me, is not too good. Industrial drive, I think all the panelists spoke about it. My belief is that the industrial drive must be led by government. We hear this thing about private sector being the engine of growth, private sector being this. Well, it's not bad, but it cannot be accepted if we actually want to grow. All right? Look around the world, look at China and all these people that have defied the odds of, you know, the way they do things to rise their economy. What you realize is that any nation that defies this order and come to the conclusion that private capital that comes from outside of your country to do business in your country is nothing but capital which comes in to do what? It is not to solve our unemployment situations. That's the private sector investment or investor is not coming to solve your unemployment problems or your doomsday problems for you, or, you know, your water problems. What they have seen is opportunity to do what? To make profit and repatriate it. So their intentions are clear. I think it was Atik that mentioned this idea of repatriating profit and all of that. If you do remember very well, there's something we call the race to the bottom approach. the race to the bottom approach, where investors will move from, Europe, wherever in Europe or America, come down to Africa. They go to South Africa and say, look, we have this amount of money we want to invest into your system. What can you do for us? They say, oh, we give you 3-4 years tax holidays. Then they move from South Africa to Angola and say, look, the South Africans gave us 3 years or 4 years. What are you going to do for us? They say, oh, no, we'll give you 8 years. Then they move from there and come to probably a place like Ghana or Nigeria and say, look, this is what the South Africans and the Angolans are doing. You should be able to do something better. And we give them 10 years. They work for 10 years, repatriate everything, and walk away, leaving us dry. So who is looking out for our interest? Yes, the dialogues are good. The dialogues must continue. But they must continue within a certain framework that looks at a broader interest of the working class people of this nation. Okay, we must be able to get to a point where capital, it's not all about capital. Capital must not always have enshrined rights at all times or at any time at all. We must, of course, if you want to create a market economy, do create the market economy, but dissociate it from the politics of the day. Where capital controls what goes on in politics, we will always find ourselves where we are. And that's why when Lawyer Dankwa spoke about protecting industry and all of it. How do you protect your industry when the capital that you're supposed to protect the industry from is the one that brought you to power? It's some people who invested in your coming into office. So they dictate the pace. They dictate what you say, what you do, when you sleep, when you do not sleep, how you say what. So we must be able to do that. You understand? Having said all of that, I'd like to say it's a very noble step, to sit on the same table. Invite people from academia, from civil society, from media, even, other political parties. And, to all sit on the table to decide on the way forward. It must continue, like all the panelists have agreed with us. It must continue, but it must continue in a certain direction that will inure to our benefit, our collective benefit as a people, and not just, to the interests of a few in society. That's the little I'll say for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let's go with Najib Yaya. Yes. Of the Accra Collective of the Socialist Forum. Socialist movement. Wow.
We have, transformed from a forum to a movement.
The movement, Socialist Movement of Ghana. But forgive me. Dealing with the socialist movement dates back to the forum. Yes. So
familiar with the forum.
Yes.
So I'm in the middle of four socialism.
Say again.
So I'm in the midst of
socialist.
Socialist. It's not necessarily because they are
social democracy.
There's no problem with that.
He's actually in transition. You move from the far right.
I've not been to the far right.
You have not been to the far right. That even makes you closer. So
I've not been to
even he is from a CPP background. So
Of course.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much for staying tuned to the matter of all talk shows.
He lost his way.
And of course, we have to move on to the very next discussion. I think this may be the first time we are having independence celebration in about 8 years where you don't have, and Dr. Percy, of course, have passed on. We have a whole debate here about who did what in independence because the MPP people come and say something. It becomes a whole discussion about the founding of this country. For the first time, it's all around exactly what happened on Independence Day. And President Mahama's promise, I think Honorable Sweeney was talking about, the promise was how do we move from achieving political independence to economic independence too. And he says this government perhaps has to put us back on that track, to getting to economic independence. So we'll talk about what they did, the austere independence celebration, but that will be very brief because as always with Alhaji&Alhaji, we've run out of some time. And because I'll start with lawyer on this one again.
So why is it before 2 minutes, 3 minutes? because the last topic is
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
The last topic seems to be that's too much.
That's more than enough. Actually.
I don't think I need.
You won't have time for all of this.
No, please go on.
I don't think it will.
So no way.
So let's say
40 minutes to go. As I'm thinking, so maybe 5 minutes.
There isn't much to say about this issue except to say that I think it was a classic now. Well, that's how I see it. I think one criticism we have of the last government was when they were telling us to tighten our seatbelts. They are losing theirs. And I think the president understands that, listen, you can't tell people to tighten theirs and then you're losing yours. You know, I made an argument here, you know, when arguments was being made why a president about having been a president before. You know, I made an argument, I think in time past, that only few people have ever been former presidents, and so it wasn't, but you can clearly see the benefits of having a former president in the seat now. As in where we are, it's as if God himself planned was got everything and knew where we'll be as a country now. So I think it was excellent. I think when you compare to how much we spent in previous time, it was about 95% less. As not to be, but it was about 95% less, and it was a significant signal where we are going as a nation, where the interest of the president lies, and I think I must commend him greatly. On the issue of the debates, I think that question, even though I'm an MPP, I think that question, I can't even believe that those debates were hard, really, because I think it's clear. I think it's a matter that it might be settled, especially. As in, he also played his role. Yeah, you understand? Whether not prominent, he also played a role. But I think it's beyond contestation that when you talk about Ghana and who founded Ghana, then when you understand that Ghana was essentially an amalgamation of so many different nations, so many people made, but the person who led that effort ultimately was Kwame Nkrumah. I don't think we ought to waste any executive time in that debate. It's clear Ghana was founded by Kwame Nkrumah, and it shouldn't matter which political divide you are from. Kwame Nkrumah is from Ghana. Is from Ghana. To extent that even I understand his panties he wore it to Ghana. He's an embodiment of this country, and I think we've gone beyond that. So, because of time, I'll just say that I think right now the issue, and I want to reiterate that, I think it's clear. We need to understand that those days of we giving a signal that we have 2 countries or 3 countries or 4 countries should be put in the dustbin of history, of our bad history, and that the signal has been set, a very loud signal that the time for us to forge that one strong nation is upon us. And forging that one nation also means that we should walk the talk. I think the amount of money spent and the commitment to the clear signal that this president won't tell you that tighten your belts and he will loosen his. And I'll encourage the president. I hope he continues. I think it's been one of the best starts I've seen to any presidency in terms of giving real leadership. One problem I have with our politicians is that they don't know when to play the politics and when to actually give leadership. So when we bring people power, they still play politics. I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks of Nana Addo. He played politics with the presidency. But we have somebody who understands that, listen, I've played the politics, this time to work. So let's all support him. Let him work. This is, for me, this is a signal, a very loud signal, and let the signal continue. And I believe that after 2028, we'll look back at this period of our country and say this was the period when we turned the right key to reclaim our position as the Black Star of Africa. I think I'll rest on that.
Thank you. I think.
I think that the president and his team's decision not to overspend on this celebration for me is commendable, because for the most part, what we see is just an event that is meant to put school kids through trauma, get security agencies to dress in such a way that they can hardly breathe, and at the end of the day, nothing substantial is gained from that celebration. I think that it's time we made the celebration meaningful, where it would be an occasion for people to learn about the history of this country. You know, it's because we haven't told the proper history of this country well enough. That's why some are beginning to write their own histories and telling the histories the way they want. But I feel that this should be an occasion where we allow people to actually appreciate where we are coming from, and let the younger generation know that Ghana just didn't come from heaven. People had to struggle to create this nation, or this state, nation-state called Ghana, and let them understand or appreciate the processes they went through, the struggles and all that. But if we just reduce it to school kids being tormented in the sun and all that, let them march through, and I think it belittles the importance of the day. It doesn't actually give us the right kind of essence with respect to that celebration. So the austerity in the celebration is one good step. The next step is to make it more meaningful, more impactful, and more educative. The other thing is that for me, this should not be one of, I understand well the situation of our economy. So because maybe there is no money, the president is humble in his celebration. It should not change after money has come into the kitty. Let it be a trend. Let it be an established practice that never again are we going to waste money on torturing young kids and security agencies in the name of a celebration. If that becomes the established practice, that let's find ways to make it more meaningful. Let people, and in fact, it should even be a day for people to take advantage of our museums. Let us learn about history. Look, if I were in a position to advise the president, I would say that March should be declared, let's say, an Independence Month, whereby a Heritage Month, whereby like every day, like for the rest of that month, civil servants, public servants, everybody should be encouraged to dress, eat, do everything made in Ghana. Visit a site, learn about your country, learn about the culture. You know, let's be more innovative about the celebration of independence, so that it will not just be about reducing cost, but making it more impactful. And again, people would say, oh, because you are Nkrumah, we need to let people understand that everybody played a role. But you cannot assume a certain position in the struggle when indeed you did not work hard enough to occupy that position. Nobody is saying that people like David Danko didn't do anything. The mere fact that he was part of the composition of UGCC is enough a contribution. But to want to equate him to the likes of Nkrumah and, you know, stake the claim that they were actually part of the founders of the nation state Ghana, was founded by one man, and but let me say by the vision of one man and one man only. At the time we were moving for independence, others were advocating before the royal, you know, house in London, before the crown in London, that we were not ripe for independence. We were not ready for independence. So if one man led us to become independent in 1957, when we are talking, and Ghana was created, the nation state Ghana was founded in 1957. And if it had to take one man to lead that crusade, today when we are discussing those who ensured the foundation or the formation of Ghana, they are saying no, he wasn't the only person. And for me in politics, look, if you've never contested an elective position, there is a limit to your bragging rights are limited. Oh yes. Until you contest an elective position, your bragging rights in politics are very limited. And David Danko never won an election. The very first election contested, he lost. The one that took him to the Legislative Council, he was there on the account of chiefs. So we need, I'm not saying he hasn't played his role. Even going to the legislature at the time was a contribution. But you cannot liken that to somebody who, you know, gave his all just for Ghana to be independent. And let me just tie that into the last topic, you know, who caused the NPP's defeat. I think it's an exciting topic for me and very important. There won't be any time. There won't be. This is the last. There won't be any time. Look, I mean, all factors considered, it comes down to just one factor, and that's Nana Akufo-Addo. He is the reason why the MPP is in that mess. And you see, what people don't appreciate is that this is his legacy. Akufo-Addo's legacy is the humiliating defeat of the MPP as a political party. That's the legacy he's leaving behind. That Ghanaians were upset, they were hungry, and manifested that hunger and anger in the type of vote they expressed or they made on 7th December 2024. So he's going home as somebody who collapsed not only the economy, but collapsed the very entity called the New Patriotic Party. That's his legacy. So people should not struggle to look for the causes of the defeat. It comes down to one man. Look, Bawumia cannot, even though he campaigned and all that, but everything else he did was to be on the back of this man and his performance, his record, his legacy. And to the extent that Ghanaians said, look, your performance was abysmal, your attitude towards us was reprehensible, and we're going to teach the MPP the lesson. He is the cause of the MPP's near demise. Because at this point, the MPP is a living corpse. They need serious, you know, resurrection powers. Because, and I have said that, even though the NDC has majority in parliament, that for me, if it is not managed well, could be a threat to our democracy. And if anything were to happen to our democracy by reason of the numbers of the NDC in parliament, you cannot blame anybody but Akufo-Addo. This is the legacy he's leaving behind, a legacy of a majoritarian parliament. If not because the president is measured and cares more about the future of this country, if you were like him, look, this parliament would be weaponized. And our democracy will be endangered. That's Akufo-Addo's legacy. So if MPP is looking, look, the commissioning of people to go and look into what, they all know who is the cause. They're just skirting around the problem. But I will state it bluntly. Akufo-Addo is the beginning and the end of their problems. And he's the alpha and the omega. You understand? So if they are looking for the source of their crisis, they should not look beyond Akufo-Addo. And I'm saying that until they are able to get rid of the Akufo-Addo and the Akufo-Addo factor, cleanse themselves of anything Akufo-Addo, they will not make any progress. Because it appears he would still want to have a stranglehold over the party even as he stays home. And that's one battle for whoever is going to be their next flag bearer. That you need to rid yourself of the Akufo-Addo factor and his influence. If you don't, you'll be a lame candidate, you'll be there and the man will be messing you from his house. And that cannot be acceptable and that should not be tolerated.
Great, thank you. Just one comment that was sent by Julius Agahoa, who says, good morning. So now let me also use this opportunity to send my congratulations message to Honorable Alhaji&Alhaji for his well-deserved appointment. May Allah bless, protect and lead him at his new portfolio. Honorable, I also want to add my voice to the issue of Wa Road. Honorable, I've been using that road often, and I must say that road is a death trap. So I'm appealing to Honorable Alhaji&Alhaji and his boss to do something about that road before something terrible happens to innocent people who are using that road to their various destinations.
So the one from Kole all the way to Wa?
Yes.
How about the one from Damongo to Sola? That one is okay?
If you get to Sola, proceeding to Wa is still that terrible. But even from
Fufusu Junction to
even Damango to Solar now it needs some rehabilitation.
What seemed to
since
be
it
cut
was
off?
constructed,
it's been a long time,
around 9 to 10 years ago. It has not seen any maintenance. You know, that's one other thing that we have noticed at the ministry, where lots of money was voted for maintenance works.
That's what you need to do an audit on our roads. That's the only way you can find out what went wrong and where.
As a matter of fact, one seemed to be cut out. Look,
comment, Najib.
Yes.
Please go on. And
yes, let me take the opportunity to just, mention this.
Getting ready.
The first part. It's okay. You can go. Let comment then I will.
Yes. I mean, before I get to that, let me just mention that why it's cut out totally, because look, it's connected to Upper East, Northern region, Mbono. So if you're coming from Bolga to Wa, the road is terrible. You have to sometimes go through Tumu and all of that to get to Wa. Moving from Northern region or Savannah region into Upper West is another, headache. Then if you are coming from Bono towards Wa, so what is this? So Honorable, we are calling on you. I'm just hoping that you prioritize our roads.
As important as the point you are making is,
yes,
what crossed my mind is completely, different from the point that you are seeking to make.
Okay.
What crossed my mind is how people say we are all Northerners. They don't even know the geography. How far away the towns are from each other. How the languages are different. How the cultures are different.
So I think my first experience, so I want to cut in Tamale.
But that's for another conversation.
So I want to cut in Tamale, I've flown from to Tamale, and the quarter to adjourn because they couldn't find a Gonja translator. That's what I realized.
Anyway, yes, on the Independence Day celebration thing, I mean, SENA, one thing has to be established clearly, without any ambiguity, that there's only one founder for Ghana. Any attempt to change that is like holding a baobab tree with both hands and making an attempt to shake it. The only thing that shakes at that moment is your head. And that's what the MPP and the UP tradition are trying to do. Of course, other people played major roles, that culminated to our independence, starting from 1948 route, even way beyond that. People like Mensa Saba and the rest. These are all contributions that we must acknowledge. But when it comes to present-day Ghana, it took the vision of the Osagifo to bring the northern territories to the Ashanti Kingdom with the Gold Coast and the Transvolta Togoland, stitching it piece by piece, whilst others were trying to wreck it the way they have tried to wreck our economy today. So yes, other people played roles. J.B. Dankwa did play a role. What's his name? The so-called Big Sis. Everybody played a role. But there's only one founder for Ghana, and that founder is the Osagifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I'm happy there's a new administration now. One thing that makes me sick to the stomach, especially in the last 8 years, is the celebration, Honorable, of Liberation Day, National Liberation Day. That has been reduced to jollof competition between Ghana and Nigeria. I don't know if you've seen that in the past couple of years. Jollof competition. At a time when we're living in a continent where the founder of this nation himself has stated unequivocally that our independence is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of the African continent. Is the continent truly liberated? As we speak today, the people of the Sahrawi Arab Republic are under Moroccan occupation. Illegal occupation. An occupation similar to what we are seeing in Gaza. It's happening within the continent.
And yet our president, the last day.
Not just the last day, last 2 hours of leaving office,
the occupation.
You've issued a statement
This is an issue.
cutting diplomatic ties with the Sahrawi Arab Republic. So it tells you that independence means different things to different people. What it means to us is totally different from what it means to people within some people within the Busia Dankwa tradition. Because for our outgoing president to do what he did, it tells you his understanding of what independence is. But am I surprised? I am not. Because this is a man who consistently has tried to, downplay the Osajifo and his achievements. You understand? This is a man who has been more like a stooge for Western, intelligence and Western allies out there, people in the colonial metropolis. So we're not surprised about what he did. So, yes, the austere way of handling the celebration was a good one. We commend the government for it. And like my brother here has said, we hope going into the future we'll find better ways of doing it. And I'm particularly happy with that proposal he made of, making it the whole month of March a heritage month, where we can do different things, within the month to show our Ghanaianness, to show our pride as Africans, to show our pride in the nominal independence that we have. Nominal, because the neo-colonial grip is on us and our economies until, we have full possession of them. At least we can celebrate something. I think tying it with the last, topic on the list is the failure of the NPP and how they are pointing. They are all responsible for their failure. Why am I saying that? Of course, chief amongst them is the outgone president. I agree with him to that extent. Do you remember prior to 2016 election, the scandals of the NPP before they were voted into office? I don't know if you remember. The internal mismanagement of funds within the party, the corruption scandals within the party. You remember when Nanado mounted platforms and told people, you remember all those things? We remember them vividly. And yet, he was the secret accounts and all of those things. Those pickups that were bought by the former, former national chairman, and nobody accounted for how they were used, and so on. In fact, look at how the former chairman himself was dismissed from the party. His vice chairman, the secretaries. All those things happened, and yet the man won with, very landslide in the 2016 election. Prior to the 2016 election, he won big time at the Congress. He was endorsed against all the odds. By who? By the party. So you endorse corruption for Ghanaians, and Ghanaians came and endorsed it, and then he showed us the pepper that we were told we will see. He showed it to us. So today, if you sit down and you are pointing fingers at each other, that's their headache. Of course, I must admit that a responsible opposition is always necessary in every democracy. We wish them well. We wish that they go back to sit on the table and see what they didn't do right, repackage themselves, and come, present to us what they have next. I doubt anyway that with the current state of things, they will be able to push away the current administration. I doubt. They would have to go back to their drawing board and reassess themselves and repackage themselves so that at least they can be acting as responsible minority. They must come down from their high horses, like I've said earlier on. Stop the arrogance and then speak to Ghanaians like, we are all Ghanaians, that they didn't bring some people from some place to be part of this country. This is our country, and it belongs to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. Just 2 comments. First, President Kufuor says Ghanaians should have the trust and hope in His Excellency John Mahama-led NEC government to reset Ghana and give us the Ghana we want. Next week, by now, e-levy, betting tax, and other nuisance taxes will be a thing of the past for Ghanaians to be free. God bless our homeland, Ghana. Then there is this one which says, good morning, Sena. Greetings to you and your panel. Sena, in fact, I find it very disturbing and very deceiving when it comes to the way we talk about our economy, which is a noun. My understanding of the word economy is as follows: careful, thrifty management of resources, such as money, materials, or labor. What are we doing to these 4 nouns? We need answers. We should stop throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. We are watching from afar. Kwekunimo sent that from Germany. And he believes CPP will come back strongly to overhaul the country because our country is sick. That's Kweku's faith. In the meantime, whilst the Honorable Deputy Minister designates. So this one there, you are. There's nothing that can be done. You are Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways. All that is left is for grace to see many days ahead and many years ahead of you. So,
you know, that's when the swearing that day.
Because we've been talking about the Wa Road, so whilst our listeners are listening to, they'll also be seeing the Wa Road in question.
Oh, how? Oh, wow. If you are going to be doing this to your road ministers. Yeah, I think that people are getting tired of the debate about who the founder of this nation is. I mean, walk to any basic school and ask a child about any members of the Big Six, you know, and naturally the child is going to tell you more about Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Asks about, you know, our national teams. And people are most likely to recall the captains of the teams. You know, that's how life is. At every point in time, somebody is going to stand out. Somebody is going to lead. You know, even though it's going to take a team, it's going to take, you know, an entourage to achieve something. In the process, someone will take the crown. And that is what it is for Sajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Like Comrade said earlier, Najib said earlier, it's like shaking the baobab tree and expecting fruits to fall from the branches. You will only have your head shaking. The tree will remain resilient and shaking. So I think that that is why perhaps this year there's fatigue with that debate. And yes, I also agree, may the soul of Dr. Pery rest in perfect peace, that maybe some of the debaters are not around with us as we speak. But I don't think that it's a conversation to continue to have as a country. We have dealt with it, and Dr. Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is the founder of this nation, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can change that. No one can wish it away. Only this week, I mean, Parliament had, I think it was last week, there was some debate about the Big Six and all of that, and something funny is happening in Parliament. I mean, the Speaker, I mean, during the debate, a very irresponsible member of Parliament who is yet to be identified, you know, even though there are suspicions about who really was behind that very reckless utterance into the microphone of Parliament, made some reference to someone amongst us being the daughter of a murderer, you know, and Speaker Bagbin and Parliament decided to take this matter up. Incidentally, the day Speaker Bagbin was going to make a statement on it and to apologize, you know, and call for the fellow to own up or investigations will fish the fellow up, there were a group of people who demonstrated to Parliament to present a petition. And yesterday something funny happened. Some people also came in red and placards, and I was like, I mean, why do we reduce very important conversations in this country to such level of partisanship? And I think it was Pierre Dankwa who was making the point earlier about knowing when to stop campaigning, stop politicking, and really do some serious national business, building of a country. Look, the difference between what they are seeking to equalize is that you had a reckless member who was not even bold to stand up on the floor and utter the words that he uttered. I mean, if he knew that it was responsible and he could defend it. I mean, if the person is hiding because it's bad, and again, what they miss is that it wasn't or it isn't about Rawlings.
His daughter.
It's the daughter who's a member of parliament. It's not about Rawlings. I mean, the Chamber of Parliament is a melting point of debates and opinions, especially when they are backed by facts and data. And so, if you can get a publication somewhere that suggests that Rawlings was a murderer, you can quote it on the floor and no one is going to hold you responsible. Just as someone has a document reporting, that J.B. Dankwa and others worked for the CIA and quoted it. That's completely different from assuming J.B. Dankwa's daughter was on the floor and calling her a daughter of a CIA agent. I mean, the daughter could have taken offense. Parliament could have taken offense, or the daughter of a traitor. That would be offensive to the House and to the member. That's so. It's not about Nkrumah and J.B. Dankwa. No, Nkrumah is up there and J.B. Dankwa is nowhere near. Please, it doesn't matter how much you admire J.B. Dankwa. He really, really contributed to the growth of this country. But the fact is that worldwide, Nkrumah is up there and J.B. Dankwa. So it's not about Nkrumah and J.B. Dankwa. What is in Parliament is not about Nkrumah and J.B. Dankwa. And I think that my friends in the NPP must realize that and stop that, play to the gallery that they are engaging. I think we must look at what is at stake here. And as for the celebration of the independence being scaled down, the verdict is out there. Commendations are pouring in. In my district, for example, after engaging my district director, noticed that the budget that was prepared for the celebration was about 66,000 Ghana cedis. But due to the scaling down, they had to raise only 20,000 to do it. I mean, that's the significant savings that we are making, apart from the national celebration, which according to the president was budgeted at around 20 million and they use about 1.5 million. I mean, that's significant. And you see, in leadership, signaling is very key. You cannot underestimate the impact of signaling, right or wrong signaling. That's why maybe it is said in our local parlance that when a fish is getting rotten, it starts from the head. Signaling is key. And so when you have a president that says that, look, we are broke, we have to act broke and live broke and go and sit with labor to plead with them, to accept a base pay rise of about 10% below the the dollar rate, and they graciously accept. I mean, how insensitive can you be if you don't act like you are really broke? And so it's commendable. And I had again make the point that, and he's not the only one. Yesterday, I think I saw somewhere that Professor Stephen Adai, an avowed critic of President Mahama, was also confessing that, at least in the last 100 days, if he's going to judge President Mahama, he puts him next to Nkrumah. I mean, that's what he said. So again, the experience of he ever being a president is showing in the decisions that he's making, in the steps that he's taking. And so that is why, during the Sona debate yesterday, I sought to present the state of the nation that His Excellency President Mahama didn't deliver. I mean, the Speaker was wondering, but our colleagues on the opposite side sometimes get up and say, oh, he didn't touch on this, he didn't touch on that. Well, so I decided that I was also going to touch on the fact that, for example, he did not tell us he did not boast about the leanest government that he's forming and the savings and the impact that it's making. 60 ministers, he's done 56 so far. I mean, look at the overwhelming margin of victory and the expectations of appointments across the country. But he still, in his quiet, still manner, has been able to ward off, the lobbying and the temptation to apologize, like some even suggested, and to go beyond 16. It tells you the character of the man. He didn't boast about it in his State of the Nation address. Yes, and to some extent. I mean, you may be disappointed that maybe your favorite is not in there or at where the person wants to be, but you cannot criticize even the person who is picked. Yeah. It's difficult for you to say one is picked and it's not befitting of where the person is. So that's remarkable. He didn't highlight the Hajj fares that have been reduced, and the fact that through the Ghana Airport Company they are constructing a special terminal for Hajj operations. So I know why that is key and important to me. It's not so only because we are in the month of Ramadan, but it's because it didn't have to take a Christian at the presidency, a Muslim at the presidency or at the vice presidency for Hajj to be drastically reduced by about $1,000. That's about 13 to 14,000 Ghana cedis. So next time a politician comes to tell you that you should vote him or her based on his or her faith, you should know that that's a bad politician. You should know that's a bad politician. It didn't have to take a Muslim to ensure that Hajj fare is reduced drastically. Not a Muslim in the vice president office, not a Muslim in the president's office. But remember that only a few weeks ago, you had someone in the vice president's office who campaigned on the basis of a faith to represent Muslims, and was doing so again on the basis of a faith to represent Muslims at the presidency, even though he sat on and looked at Hajj fares rise to the level and he could do nothing about it. And that's why this is significant to me.
Also, you have to learn from me. In fact, you said you needed only 5 minutes, but you've gone way.
I'm sorry, there was a deviation. So I agree with you. But you see, he didn't highlight this in his State of the Nation address, and I thought that it deserves some highlighting. Look at how governance has become responsive. Very responsive. I mean, school children cannot cross a bridge to go to school. It's not ignored. Attention is paid. Social media, someone records a bridge. The Minister of Roads is there to fix it. I mean, the first bridge, the Ministry of, Ghana Armed Forces were moved in. I mean, K2. The President on Independence Day, after the Independence Day celebration, mobilized resources to go there to find out how the tidal wave is washing away communities. A national disaster in the waiting. He didn't tell them that they are lucky that he's even coming because, And I mean, this may, and I'm landing with this may be on a lighter note, but it's also significant because I'm talking about signaling. You don't have a V8 carrying a chair around for the president anymore. That's the state of our nation. That's the state of our nation. You don't have a president commanding chiefs to rise. In fact, he rather impresses upon them to stay at their places so he comes to grave. That's the state of our nation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pierre Dankwa, I guess you're still interested in talking about now. I think you are. Yeah, so there's no. Yes, so our time is up.
Yeah, but you need to establish the fact that the CIA thing about J.B. Dankwa is from the declassified files
of the CIA. Yes,
it's not from any individual.
In fact,
I was just talking about
publication.
The person referred to a publication.
Exactly.
J.B. Dankwa did.
So even
and then you are taking offense. They never contested that publication. Parliament is a melting point of debate, and so if you can back whatever you say with the relevant sources,
it shouldn't. But also the fact remains that Kwame Nkrumah is the man of the African millennium. So facts are facts.
Well, two things to deal with. First of all, on a very sad note, Dr. David Pery will be buried on the 27th of March. So the family has set 27th of March 2025 to bury him. Pre-burial ceremony will be 7 a.m. Then there'll be a burial service and funeral rites 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And by interment to be private though, but the ceremony, you can be part of the burial service and funeral rites at the Lashibi funeral home. So at the Lashibi funeral home in Lashibi, so you can be part of it. Dr. Vipesi was one of the most consistent participants in Alhaji&Alhaji when it comes to Dr. Pery. In fact, I say my understanding of history has been shaped largely by him and Kwame Kwesi Jr. Listening to them shape the way you see the history of the country. So may he so continue to rest in peace. And of course, the flyer was displayed. And when they will display, the producers will display the flyer. And then there's one other thing to do, and I'm hoping that my producers will come in. One of the things we haven't done enough is to always, I usually say it in passing when he's here, that he was, in fact, at some point the show became a Suhini show. Alhassan Suhini. When you say Alhaji&Alhaji, Alhassan Suhini, and you did a fantastic job during the time of the show, establishing it as one of the leading shows. So I think easy for us. Yes. So
that's so tough.
Yes. So just to celebrate the man that you are. In fact, we are all excited with the path you are on since you joined politics officially and leaving the show. I have had the job of trying to hold the fort, but because of you, people are now telling me to go to Parliament and then become Deputy Rose Minister and everything. But well, fantastic. We are.
I mean, thank you so much. I'm humbled
by this gesture. It's inspiring, and it's good to know that you continue to have my back. I'm most grateful. This is dedicated to all the fallen heroes, Alhaji Bature, and also to Dr. David Pery, and to the founding members, Alhaji Seni, and Comrade Kwesi Pratt,
Dr. Tonedo,
Randy Abe, Dr. Tonedo. This is to all of you because you made me look good.
Yes.
You made me accepted by the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's easy part.
Thank you, Sena.
For those of you who have come to know only Sena as the host of Alhaji&Alhaji, I am just inheriting a legacy. A legacy built on Alhassan Suhini. Now you know him as Member of Parliament for Tamale North. They've given him that privilege. It's on that privilege that he's riding to the other positions. So we will always continue to thank the people of Tamale North for giving our brother that privilege to represent you. You have a lot of work to do.
And he should do so for a very long time.
Yes. He has a lot of work to do there and continues to do so much. I was impressed when I saw the people coming up, people who actually came to support you during your vetting. There's one reason why I'm wearing this today. When we came to the campaign launch in 2024, a gentleman known as Aziz. Yeah, gave me this.
I think that's one of my branch chairman.
He said he does this for a living.
Tall.
Yes.
Palmo.
He gave this to me.
He does it.
Yes. And also to show you that me too, I can wear the smock on. I was there and I said,
Thank you.
My brother was distributing more smokes. I said, I don't love TV like that. But congratulations to you, and a big thank you for making time to join us on the show today.
I think what was missed with that gesture was, the appointments committee is always in the news for receiving or not receiving gifts and being influenced. And one of the ways I have always said we can fight corruption is to be transparent about our gift-giving culture. Because obviously we have a gift-giving culture. We can't run away from that. But how much is too much a gift? We can only determine that if we begin to make our gift-giving culture public. Let the people decide that this gift was too much. And then how much is too little? Then if it gets to a point where we have to legislate on that, we legislate on that. Because I didn't want to leave the vetting committee. I have been part of it. And then with rumors that I may have paid anybody anything. So I had smokes from my chiefs, which I donated to them. And I did so publicly. I could have done that behind the scenes, but I did so publicly. As part of our gift-giving culture.
He's member of parliament for Tamale North constituency, deputy minister for roads and highways. President Mahama sent a letter as soon as possible, please, with indulgence, His Excellency. And of course, it was nice to have Najib Yahya, who is a member of the crack collective of the Socialist movement of Ghana. We also have in studio Atik Mohammed. Atik Mohammed is a politician now. He's you're doing civil society work more, master. And then sitting right to my left is lawyer Andrew Apia Dankwa. Like I said, he's from a CPP stock, but he's a spokesperson for the movement for change. you know what I say? Well, I am Sona NOMBO, and of course, a big thank you to the crew for today.
It doesn't look like him, but you put it in.
Emmanuel Ose, who was in charge of ETR, and Edem, who was director. Latifa in charge of sound. She's also one of our 3 producers. She presented the citation to Honorable Suhini. Latifa, led by Tijani Badamasi, Rabna Frimpong. Those are the producers of the show. We are back same time next week with another edition of the show. Do stay tuned to Pan-African Television, of course, to Radio Gold 90.5 FM.
Into the land of freedom.
All right.
He's the Redeemer.
Women of Ghana, International Women's Day is our day. This year, it is being organized under the theme, Accelerate Action. We do not only recognize the profound contributions of women in every sphere of society, but we also affirm our commitment to breaking the barriers that have long hindered our full participation in the nation's progress. Ghanaian women are the backbone of our families, communities, and economy, of course. Whether in our markets, in the boardrooms, classrooms, farmlands, or on the beaches, women continue to drive innovation, nurture growth, and shape the future of our country. Our contributions to business, to governance, education, healthcare, and the sciences are invaluable. And as a nation, we owe it to ourselves to create an ecosystem where everyone can thrive without imposed limitations. Over the years, we have made significant strides in advancing gender equality and empowering women. Under our current leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we have taken bold steps and remain dedicated to ensuring that women have the opportunities, resources, and the support needed to excel. Some of the key initiatives include the establishment of the Women's Development Fund to provide financial support to women entrepreneurs, ensuring that we have the capital and other forms of support to take action, expand our businesses, affirmative actions to increase the representation of women in leadership and governance, paving the way for more women to take their rightful places at decision-making tables. These ideas mark progress, but we know that the journey towards true equality is far from over. Women still face
African.
This is my motherland, Lady Ghana tiny. Anything I go talk, Linda tiny. Bo Bonnie hey, Bonnie Dane Fay. Many me fend he katia, many won't pay. Male Bahi can you fend the Bajamin Cabo. When you look on India, I promise on my own, I'm with Pioneer and Sona. Ling off a Nina Sana, Nibukuna no Sona.
Yawaena, Jumanchia Fico May, Coan Kabila Capito, Zaida Kai. Banda bambanci